The rain came down in sheets so thick Tamara Brooks could barely see 3 feet ahead. Her blue scrubs clung to her skin as she hurried down Fifth Avenue, her sneakers splashing through puddles that had formed in the broken sidewalk. The double shift at County General had drained every ounce of energy from her body, and all she wanted was to collapse on her second-hand couch with a cup of tea. That's when she saw him. A man in a tuxedo, completely soaked, stumbled around the corner like he'd just escaped from somewhere. His bow tie hung loose around his neck, his white shirt plastered to his chest, and his black dress pants were splattered with mud. But it was his face that stopped Tamara in her tracks. Pure panic. His eyes darted back and forth, wild and unfocused, like a trapped animal searching for an exit. He ran straight toward her, nearly knocking her over before catching himself. Up close, she could see he was trembling, whether from cold or fear, she couldn't tell. "Please," he gasped, gripping her arm. "Please, I need help. They're after me." Tamara's nursing instincts kicked in immediately. She scanned him for injuries but saw nothing obvious. No blood, no obvious wounds. Just a terrified man in formal wear, drenched and desperate. "Who's after you? Are you hurt?" She had to shout over the pounding rain. Before he could answer, 2 large men in dark suits rounded the same corner, their heads swiveling as they searched the street. The man beside her saw them and his grip on her arm tightened. "Please," he whispered urgently. "I'm not a criminal. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't marry her. I ran and now they won't let me go." The 2 men spotted them. They started moving faster. Tamara had exactly 3 seconds to make a decision. Every reasonable bone in her body screamed at her to walk away, to let this clearly wealthy man deal with his own problems. She had enough troubles of her own. Rent was due in 5 days, her sister needed new textbooks for her college courses, and she'd just worked 16 hours straight. But she'd become a nurse for a reason. She helped people. It was in her nature, woven into the fabric of who she was. "Come on," she said, making her choice. She grabbed his hand and pulled him into a run. Her apartment was only 2 blocks away. Behind them she heard shouting, but the storm swallowed most of the words. Her legs burned as she pushed herself faster than she'd moved in months. The man kept pace beside her, his expensive dress shoes slipping on the wet pavement. They turned down Maple Street, then cut through the narrow alley beside the bodega where she bought her groceries. Tamara's building came into view, its old brick facade never looking more welcoming. She fumbled for her keys with shaking hands, finally getting the door open. They burst inside and she slammed it shut behind them, clicking the deadbolt into place. For a long moment, they both just stood in the cramped entryway, breathing hard and dripping water all over the worn tile floor. Tamara peeked through the small window beside the door. The 2 men in suits ran past, not even glancing at her building. "I think we lost them," she said, her heart still racing. The man slumped against the wall, sliding down until he sat on the floor. He put his head in his hands. "Thank you. God, thank you. You didn't have to do that." Now that they were inside, under the flickering fluorescent light of her building's hallway, Tamara got her first real look at him. He was probably in his early 30s, with dark hair plastered to his forehead and sharp features that belonged on a magazine cover. The tuxedo, even soaked and rumpled, was clearly expensive. Custom-made if she had to guess. "Who are you?" she asked, keeping her distance. Kindness was one thing, but she wasn't stupid. "And why are men in suits chasing you through the city?" He looked up at her and she saw something in his eyes that made her chest tighten. Not danger. Defeat. "My name is Julian Wright," he said quietly. "And about 3 hours ago, I was supposed to become someone's husband." Tamara blinked. "You ran away from your own wedding?" "Yes." He laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "I stood at that altar, looked at Vanessa, looked at all those people expecting me to say the words I'd been coached to say, and I just couldn't. So I ran. Right out the church doors into the rain, and I just kept running." "The men chasing you?" "Security. My family's security." He dragged a hand through his wet hair. "The Wrights don't let their heirs just disappear. Bad for business. Bad for the family image." The name Wright struck a chord in Tamara's memory. She'd seen it in the news on buildings downtown. Wright Industries. They owned half the commercial real estate in the city, plus tech companies, manufacturing plants, and God knew what else. This wasn't just some rich guy. This was serious money. "You're one of those Wrights?" she asked. "Unfortunately." He met her eyes. "Look, I know this is insane. I'm a complete stranger and I've probably gotten you involved in something you want nothing to do with. Just let me catch my breath and I'll leave. I'll figure something out." Tamara studied him. She'd dealt with enough people in the ER to recognize genuine distress. This man wasn't high, wasn't drunk, wasn't dangerous. He was just scared and lost. "My apartment's on the 3rd floor," she heard herself say. "You can dry off there. I'll make coffee." Have you ever helped a stranger not knowing it would change everything? What would you have done in Tamara's place? Subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Would you have walked away or would you have taken the risk like she did? Julian stood slowly, water still dripping from his clothes. "Why are you helping me? You don't know me." "I'm a nurse," Tamara said simply, starting up the stairs. "Helping people is what I do. Even people running from their own weddings." Her apartment was small but clean. One bedroom that she'd given to her younger sister Rochelle, while she took the pull-out couch in the living room. The kitchen was barely big enough for 2 people, and the bathroom had a perpetually leaky faucet that the landlord refused to fix. But it was home, and right now it was a sanctuary. "Sit," she instructed, pointing to the small couch. "I'll get you a towel." Julian sat gingerly on the edge of the cushion, clearly trying not to soak it too badly. Tamara grabbed towels from the bathroom and tossed him one, then disappeared into her bedroom to change out of her wet scrubs. She pulled on her favorite red sweatshirt and comfortable jeans, running a towel through her own soaked hair. When she returned to the living room, Julian had dried off as best he could. He'd removed his jacket and was working on wringing water from his shirt sleeves. In the warm light of her living room lamps, he looked less like a desperate runaway and more like what he was, a person in crisis. "Coffee or tea?" she asked, moving to the kitchen. "Coffee, please. If it's not too much trouble." "It's never too much trouble." She filled the old coffee maker, measuring out grounds from the tin she kept in the freezer. "So, Julian, right? Want to tell me why a man with everything would run from his own wedding?" He was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. The coffee maker gurgled and hissed, filling the apartment with the rich smell of brewing coffee. "Have you ever felt like your whole life was written by someone else?" he finally said. "Like you're just reading lines in a play you never auditioned for?" Tamara poured 2 mugs of coffee, added sugar to hers, and brought them both to the living room. She handed him one and sat in the armchair across from him. "Tell me." And he did. The words poured out of him like water through a broken dam. He told her about growing up as the youngest right son, always in the shadow of his older brother Harrison. About his father's expectations, the pressure to be perfect, to marry the right person, to produce the right heirs, to live the right life. About Vanessa Montgomery, daughter of another powerful family, who was beautiful and accomplished and completely wrong for him. "We barely know each other," Julian said, staring into his coffee. 3 dinners. That's all we had before my father announced our engagement. 3 dinners where we talked about stock portfolios and charity galas and merger benefits. She's not a bad person. She's just not my person." "Did you tell your family that?" "Of course. My father said love comes later. That marriage in our world is about partnerships, about building dynasties." He looked up at Tamara. "But I watched him with my mother. He loved her. Really loved her. She passed away 2 years ago and he was never the same. So how can he tell me to marry without love, when he had it himself?" Tamara sipped her coffee, processing this strange confession from a stranger who was quickly becoming less strange. "What about your brother? The older one? Harrison?" A small smile crossed Julian's face. "He's the perfect right heir. Married the perfect wife, runs the perfect division of the company, has the perfect kids. But he's happy. Really happy. And he's been telling me for weeks not to go through with this if I didn't want to. But you almost did anyway." "Fear," Julian admitted. "Fear of disappointing everyone. Fear of being cut off, cast out. Fear of choosing wrong." He set down his coffee mug. "But standing there today, I realized I was more afraid of spending my life trapped in someone else's dream. So I ran." Tamara understood that fear more than he knew. She'd chosen nursing school over her father's wish for her to study business. She'd chosen to take in her younger sister after their parents died in a car accident, even though everyone said she was too young to be a guardian. Every major decision in her life had been about choosing her own path, even when it was terrifying. "So what now?" she asked. "I don't know." Julian looked around her modest apartment, and she saw something like wonder in his eyes. "This place. It's so different from anywhere I've ever been. It feels real." "It is real," Tamara said with a slight smile. "Very real. Rent payments every month prove that." "I'm sorry. I didn't mean." He trailed off, looking embarrassed. "I know what you meant." She set down her own mug. "Look, you can stay here tonight. That couch pulls out into a bed. Tomorrow we'll figure out your next move. But right now you need rest. And probably food." When's the last time you ate? This morning. Wedding day breakfast with my groomsmen. He grimaced at the memory. Tamara stood and moved to the kitchen. I don't have much, but I can make eggs and toast. You don't have to do this. I know. She cracked eggs into a pan, her movements automatic after years of late-night cooking for herself and Rochelle. Behind her, she heard Julian stand and approach the kitchen doorway. Why? He asked softly. Why are you being so kind to me? Tamara flipped the eggs, thinking about her answer. When I was in nursing school, completely broke and overwhelmed, a stranger paid for my groceries one day. I was short $5, holding up the line about to put things back. This older woman just stepped up and handed the cashier a 20. She said, "We all need help sometimes, honey. Pay it forward when you can." She plated the eggs and toast, handing Julian a plate. So I do. Whenever I can. They ate in comfortable silence. Julian finished every bite, then insisted on washing the dishes despite Tamara's protests. She set up the pull-out bed, found him clean clothes that would be too small but at least dry, and showed him where the bathroom was. "Tamara," he said as she was heading to her bedroom. She turned back. "Thank you. For everything. For not calling the police or my family. For treating me like a person, not a scandal. Get some sleep, Julian. Tomorrow's a new day." But as she lay in her own bed, listening to the rain finally soften against the windows, Tamara wondered what she'd just gotten herself into. Julian Wright was big news, and helping him meant potentially big problems. His family would be looking for him. The media would be all over this story. Still, she didn't regret her choice. There had been something genuine in his desperation, something that spoke to her own struggles with expectation and obligation. And his offer to pay her for her trouble, which she'd initially refused on principle, might actually be something to reconsider. Not as payment for kindness but as simple gratitude. In the living room, Julian lay awake on the pull-out bed, staring at the ceiling. The apartment was quiet except for the old radiators hissing. Everything about this place was different from his world. The walls were thin. He could hear neighbors moving around. There were water stains on the ceiling and the furniture had clearly been assembled from discount stores. But it felt more like home than his family's mansion ever had. For the first time in years, maybe his whole life, Julian felt like he could breathe. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. His family would be furious. The business would be in chaos. Vanessa and her family would demand explanations. But tonight he was free. And he owed that freedom to a compassionate nurse in blue scrubs who'd chosen to help a stranger in the rain. Neither of them slept much that night. Both were too busy thinking about how one impulsive act of kindness had just set into motion something neither could predict. Something that would challenge everything they thought they knew about wealth, freedom, and what it meant to truly care for another person. The storm outside finally passed, leaving the city washed clean. Inside Tamara's small apartment, two people from completely different worlds had found unexpected shelter in each other's company. And though neither knew it yet, that rainy night would become the beginning of something neither had been looking for but both desperately needed. Morning light filtered through Tamara's thin curtains, casting pale shadows across the living room. She woke to the sound of her phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand. Rolling over, she grabbed it and squinted at the screen. 7 missed calls from her sister Rochelle, 3 texts from her coworker Jamie, and 2 from her neighbor Mrs. Chen. She sat up, heart sinking as she opened Rochelle's first message, "Turn on the news. Right now." Tamara hurried to the living room where Julian was already awake, sitting on the edge of the pull-out bed with his head in his hands. He looked up when she entered and she saw he'd been crying. "It's everywhere," he said quietly. "My phone died last night but I turned on your TV. I'm so sorry. I've dragged you into this mess." Tamara grabbed the remote and turned on the small television mounted on her wall. The morning news filled the screen and there it was. Billionaire heir vanishes from wedding. Massive search underway. A blonde news anchor with perfect makeup spoke in serious tones. Julian Wright, heir to the Wright Industries fortune, disappeared yesterday just moments before his scheduled wedding to Vanessa Montgomery. Sources say Wright fled the ceremony at St. Catherine's Cathedral, leaving hundreds of guests waiting. His family has issued a statement asking for privacy but confirming they're working with authorities to locate him. The screen switched to footage of the cathedral, security guards blocking reporters from entering. Then a photo of Julian appeared, a professional headshot where he looked polished and confident. Nothing like the vulnerable man sitting in her living room wearing her too small gray t-shirt and borrowed sweatpants. "We go now to our reporter outside the Wright family estate," the anchor continued. The screen showed a massive iron gate and a sprawling property beyond it. A man in his mid-30s, clearly related to Julian by the similar bone structure and dark hair, stood at a podium surrounded by microphones. "That's Harrison," Julian said. "My brother." Harrison Wright looked tired but composed. "My brother is going through a difficult time. We ask that everyone respect his privacy and ours during this period. Julian is safe and we're in communication with him. That's all we'll be saying at this time." The last part was a lie. Julian's phone was dead and he hadn't contacted anyone. "Harrison's covering for you," Tamara observed. "He always has." Julian rubbed his face. "I need to call him. Can I use your phone?" Tamara handed it over without hesitation. Julian dialed from memory, then put the phone on speaker. It rang twice before Harrison answered. "Hello. Harry, it's me." There was a long pause, then a rush of breath. "Jesus, Jules. Where are you? Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I'm safe. I'm with someone who helped me last night. Mom is losing her mind. Dad would be rolling in his grave if he could see this chaos. And Vanessa." Harrison paused. "Actually, Vanessa's handling this better than anyone. Her family's furious, but she looked almost relieved when you ran." Julian's eyebrows rose. "Really?" "Yeah. But we need to talk. Really talk. Not over the phone. Where are you?" Julian looked at Tamara, who shook her head slightly. She didn't know Harrison, didn't know if he'd bring the family security with him. "I can't say yet. But I need time, Harry. I need to figure out what I actually want, not what everyone else wants for me." "I get it. I do." Harrison's voice softened. "Look, I meant what I said. This marriage was wrong for you. But you can't just disappear. At least let me know you're truly safe, that you're not being held somewhere or—" "I'm with a friend," Julian said, glancing at Tamara with something like surprise at his own words. "She helped me last night when I had nowhere else to go. I'm not in danger. I promise." Okay, I believe you." Harrison was quiet for a moment. "Jules, I'm going to buy you time. I'll handle Mom, deal with the Montgomerys, keep the security teams from going full manhunt mode. But you need to give me something. Some assurance you're thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years." "Then prove it. Come up with a real plan. Not just running away but running towards something. You understand?" "I do." Julian looked at Tamara as he spoke. "Thank you, Harry. For everything. Call me in 24 hours. Same time tomorrow. And Jules? I'm proud of you. It takes guts to choose yourself." The call ended and Julian handed the phone back to Tamara. She took it, studying his face. "He's a good brother," she said. "The best." Julian stood, stretching his tall frame in her low-ceilinged apartment. "I need to figure out my next move. I can't stay here. It's not fair to you. Where will you go?" "I have a friend, Patricia Anderson. She lives about 3 hours north, runs a small bookstore after leaving corporate law. She's always told me I'm welcome anytime." "Then we'll get you there." Tamara said it before she could second-guess herself. You can't exactly rent a car or use your credit cards. Every transaction will be tracked. You need help." She moved to the kitchen, pulling out bread for toast. "I was supposed to work tonight, but I'll call in. Family emergency." "It's not exactly a lie." "Tamara, no. You've done enough. More than enough. Let me pay you at least. For the trouble, for the food, for everything." This time, Tamara didn't refuse. She thought of Rochelle's tuition bill sitting on her desk, the check she still needed to write. She thought of the used car that kept breaking down, making her late for shifts. She thought of all the times she'd helped others while barely keeping her own head above water. "Okay," she said. "Yes, I'll accept your help. Not as payment for kindness, but as one person letting another show gratitude." Relief washed over Julian's face. "Thank you, truly. How much do you need?" They talked numbers over breakfast. Julian was generous but not insulting, offering enough to cover Tamara's immediate expenses plus a buffer for any complications that might arise from helping him. He promised to transfer the money once they reached Patricia's place and he had access to his accounts again. "I'll need to borrow your neighbor's car," Tamara said. "Mrs. Chin sometimes lets me use it when mine's broken down. I'll tell her I need it for a family trip. Won't she see the news? Recognize me?" Mrs. Chin barely speaks English and only watches Chinese television. "You're safe there." While Tamara showered and changed, Julian cleaned up the apartment. He washed dishes, folded the pull-out bed, even attempted to tidy the small living space. It was strange, almost therapeutic, doing simple household tasks he'd never had to do in his life. At the mansion, staff handled everything. Here there was just life in its most basic, honest form. Tamara emerged wearing jeans and a bright green jacket, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She looked beautiful in a natural way that made Julian's chest tighten oddly. No designer clothes, no professional styling. Just a kind woman trying to help someone in need. "Ready?" she asked. "One thing first." Julian pulled out his wallet, which had somehow survived the rain relatively intact. He pulled out several bills and set them on the kitchen counter. "For the food, the clothes, your time last night." "Julian? Please. It would make me feel better." She took the money, folding it carefully. It was more than a week's wages for her. "Thank you." They left the apartment together, and Tamara knocked on Mrs. Chen's door. The elderly woman answered, her face lighting up when she saw Tamara. "Xiao Tam," she said warmly. "How are you?" "Good, Mrs. Chen. This is my cousin Julian. He's visiting from out of town." The lie came smoothly. "I was hoping I could borrow your car for a day or two. I want to show him around, take him to see family upstate." Mrs. Chen studied Julian briefly, then nodded. Of course. Keys are where they always are. Be safe." Minutes later, they were in Mrs. Chen's old sedan, pulling away from Tamara's apartment building. Julian slouched in the passenger seat, baseball cap pulled low over his face despite the overcast sky. "I feel like I'm in a movie," he admitted. "A ridiculous movie where the billionaire goes on the run and has to learn what real life is like." "Is that what this is?" "Research." Tamara kept her eyes on the road, navigating toward the highway. "No. It's survival." Julian watched the city roll past his window. Buildings he'd seen 1,000 times looked different from this angle, from this car, with this purpose. "I've been performing my whole life, Tamara. The perfect son, the ideal businessman, the acceptable heir. I don't even know who I actually am underneath all that. You're someone who chose freedom over comfort. That's something." They drove in silence for a while, leaving the city behind. Traffic thinned as they hit the open highway, and Tamara relaxed slightly. Getting Julian to Patricia's place was step one. After that, he'd be someone else's responsibility, and she could return to her regular life. Except something about that thought made her feel unexpectedly hollow. "Can I ask you something?" Julian said. "About last night. When you saw me, soaking wet and clearly in some kind of trouble, what made you help?" "Really? Most people would have walked right past." Tamara considered the question. "I told you about the woman who paid for my groceries. But it's more than just paying forward kindness. I think some people go through life looking for reasons to say no, to protect themselves, to stay safe. I decided a long time ago to look for reasons to say yes instead. Yes to helping. Yes to taking risks. Yes to believing people are fundamentally good until they prove otherwise. That's a beautiful way to live. It's gotten me in trouble more than once," she admitted with a smile. "But I sleep better at night." An hour into the drive, they stopped at a small diner off the highway. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a few trucks and one beat-up minivan. Inside, the place smelled like coffee and bacon, and a tired waitress in a pink uniform waved them to any open booth. They slid into a corner booth, and Julian picked up the laminated menu with genuine fascination. "What's good here?" he asked. "How would I know? I've never been here before." "Oh, right." He studied the menu like it was a legal document. "I don't think I've ever actually chosen from a menu without knowing the restaurant's reputation, the chef's credentials, or having someone recommend specific dishes. It's a diner, Julian. Just pick something that sounds good." He ordered pancakes with bacon. Tamara got a Western omelet. While they waited for their food, Julian looked around the diner, taking in details: the worn vinyl seats, the chipped coffee mugs, the way the waitress called everyone Han, in a voice roughened by years of smoking. "This is what you meant by real," he said. "Isn't it? Places like this. People just living their lives without performance, without pretense." "Pretty much." Their coffee arrived, thick and strong. Tamara added cream to hers while Julian tried his black, immediately making a face that made her laugh. "Not like the imported stuff you're used to?" "It's fine. He tried another sip. "Actually, it's kind of perfect. Just coffee. No fancy origins or roasting processes. Just fuel." Their food came, and Julian approached his pancakes with surprising enthusiasm. Between bites they talked. Tamara told him about nursing school, about the struggles of raising a teenager while working double shifts. Julian talked about his childhood, surprisingly lonely despite being surrounded by wealth and staff. "I had everything," he said, "except the freedom to just be a kid. Every move was calculated, every friendship evaluated for social benefit. Even my hobbies had to be acceptable ones. Piano instead of drums. Tennis instead of basketball. French instead of whatever language I actually wanted to learn. What would you have chosen? If you could go back. Art, Julian said immediately. I wanted to paint. Still do actually. But that wasn't a right-approved hobby. Too impractical. Too individualistic. You could start now. He looked at her, something shifting in his expression. You know what? Maybe I will. Maybe that's part of figuring out who I actually am. They finished their meal and Julian insisted on paying. He left a generous tip that made the waitress's eyes widen. Back in the car, as Tamara navigated back to the highway, Julian seemed more relaxed than she'd yet seen him. Thank you, he said. For this. For treating me like a normal person. You are a normal person. You just happen to have more zeros in your bank account. I wish everyone saw it that way. As they drove, clouds gathered overhead. Not as dramatic as the previous night's storm, but enough to make the afternoon dim. Julian told her more about Patricia, his friend who'd walked away from a six-figure salary to open a bookstore in a small town. She was the first person who told me it was okay to want something different, he explained. We worked together briefly when she was corporate counsel for one of our divisions. She saw how miserable I was and just point-blank asked me why I stayed. I didn't have a good answer. And she just left? Not immediately. But she made a plan. Saved money, found her bookstore, and one day she just did it. Walked into my father's office, handed in her resignation, and never looked back. My father was furious. Called it career suicide. But Patricia is the happiest person I know now. 2 hours into the drive, Julian's stomach started bothering him. Stress and irregular eating were catching up to him. Tamara pulled off at a rest stop, and Julian stumbled to the bathroom looking pale. When he returned, he looked sheepish. I think the excitement and the diner food aren't agreeing with me. I'm not used to any of this. We can take a break. There's no rush. They sat on a bench outside the rest stop watching families come and go. A young mother struggled with 2 toddlers and an armload of bags. Without thinking, Julian stood and approached her. Can I help? He offered. The woman looked startled, then grateful. That would be amazing, thank you. Julian carried her bags to her car while she wrangled her children into car seats. When he returned to Tamara, he was smiling. That felt good, he said. Just helping someone. No ulterior motive, no business networking. Just helping. Welcome to how regular people live. They got back on the road. Julian's phone, which he'd been charging with Tamara's car adapter, finally had enough battery to turn on. Immediately, it exploded with notifications. Hundreds of calls, thousands of texts, emails flooding in. Don't look at them, Tamara advised. Not until we get to Patricia's. It'll just stress you out. But Julian couldn't help himself. He scrolled through messages from family members, business associates, society friends. Most were concerned or angry. Some were supportive. His brother Harrison had sent several texts. Stay safe. I got your back. Call when you can. Then he saw messages from Vanessa Montgomery. His finger hovered over them, then he opened the thread. Vanessa? Tamara guessed. Yeah. Julian read silently for a moment, then let out a long breath. She says she understands. That she felt it too, the wrongness of it all. She wants to talk when I'm ready, but there's no pressure. She's calling off her family's security teams. That's generous of her. She's a good person. That was never the problem. We were just 2 people being pushed together by families with agendas. They drove for another hour, talking and occasionally lapsing into comfortable silence. Julian was surprised by how easy Tamara was to be with. No judgment, no demands, no performance required. She was exactly who she appeared to be, a kind woman helping someone in need. As the landscape changed from highway to country roads, Julian felt something shifting inside him. For the first time in his life, he was making a real choice. Not the choice his family wanted, not the safe choice, not the expected choice. His choice. And sitting beside him was someone who'd taken a risk on him for no other reason than it was the right thing to do. Someone who'd accepted his gratitude without making it transactional. Someone who was showing him, just by existing, that there were different ways to live. The GPS announced they were 10 minutes from Patricia's address. Julian sat up straighter, nervous and excited at once. What if she turns me away? He asked. What if this is all a mistake? Then we figure out plan B, Tamara said simply. But I don't think that's going to happen. She was right. When they pulled up to the small bookstore with a cozy apartment above it, Patricia came running out. She was in her 50s, with gray-streaked hair pulled into a messy bun and reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She wore jeans and a blue flannel shirt, and her face broke into a huge smile when she saw Julian climb out of the car. "Julian Wright, you crazy man," she called, pulling him into a tight hug. "I saw the news. I was hoping you'd show up here." "Hi, Pat," Julian said, hugging her back. He felt tears prick his eyes. "I didn't know where else to go. You came to exactly the right place." Patricia pulled back, holding him at arm's length to study his face. "You look terrible. And happy. How is that possible? It's been a strange couple of days." Patricia's gaze shifted to Tamara, who was standing by the car, giving them space. "And who's your friend?" "This is Tamara Brooks. She saved my life. Literally took me in when I had nowhere to go." Patricia approached Tamara with her hand extended. "Then you're a saint. Come inside, both of you. We have a lot to talk about." The bookstore was exactly what Julian had described. Cozy, cluttered in the best way, smelling of paper and coffee. Patricia led them upstairs to her apartment, which was just as welcoming. She made tea while Julian and Tamara settled on her worn but comfortable couch. "Okay," Patricia said, bringing over 3 mugs. "Start from the beginning. Everything." Julian told the whole story. The wedding, the moment of panic, running through the rain, meeting Tamara. Patricia listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, her face moving through expressions of concern, understanding, and approval. When Julian finished, Patricia turned to Tamara. "You took quite a risk helping him. The Wrights aren't known for being gentle with complications." "I'm learning that," Tamara admitted. "But it felt like the right thing to do." "It was." Patricia smiled warmly. "And Julian is lucky to have found you. Now let's talk about what happens next. Julian, you can stay here as long as you need. But hiding out isn't a long-term solution. You need a real plan." "I know." Harrison said the same thing. "Your brother's right. So what do you actually want? Not what you're running from, but what you're running toward." Julian was quiet for a long moment. "I want to live authentically. I want to work on projects that matter to me, not just maximize shareholder value. I want to help people. Real people, not just write checks at charity galas." He glanced at Tamara. "I want to be the kind of person who sees someone in trouble and actually helps, without calculating the cost-benefit ratio." "That's a start," Patricia said. "But specifics matter. You have resources, connections, education. How do you want to use them?" They talked for hours, throwing out ideas. Julian could step back from his CEO track position, move into philanthropic work. He could start a foundation focused on real community support, not just tax-deductible donations. He could use his business degree to help nonprofits become more effective. Tamara listened, occasionally offering perspective from her world. What people actually needed, how services could be better delivered, where the gaps were in the system. "You see," Patricia said to Julian. "This is what happens when you engage with real life instead of just theorizing about it in boardrooms. Real solutions come from understanding real problems." By evening, Julian had the outline of a plan. He'd return home in a few days, face his family on his terms, and propose a new role in the company that aligned with his values. If they refused, he'd step away entirely and use his trust fund to start something new. "It won't be easy," Patricia warned. "Your mother will fight you. The board will resist. People will say you're throwing away your potential." "Let them." Julian looked more determined than he had in days. "I'd rather build something meaningful from scratch than inherit something that suffocates me." Tamara stood, preparing to leave. "I should head back. My sister will be wondering where I am." "Stay," Patricia insisted. "It's too late to drive back now. I have a guest room." Julian stood too. "Before you decide, there's something I need to do." He pulled out his phone and made a call. When it connected, he put it on speaker. "Julian?" Harrison's voice was clear and concerned. "Right on time. You okay?" "I'm fine. Better than fine." "Harry, I need you to do something for me." "Anything." "I need you to transfer $50,000 to an account I'm going to give you. Tonight." There was a pause. "Okay. Can I ask why?" "I'm repaying a debt. To someone who helped me when I needed it most." Julian looked at Tamara as he gave Harrison her bank account information, which she'd shared reluctantly. She started to protest, but Julian held up his hand. "This isn't charity," he said firmly. "This is gratitude. You helped me, gave me shelter, sacrificed your time and took a risk on a stranger. That deserves more than just words." Tamara's eyes filled with tears. She thought of Rochelle's tuition, the bills piling up, the constant stress of trying to make ends meet. This was life-changing money for her. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say you'll accept it with the same grace you showed me." Say you'll use it to make your life easier, the way you made mine bearable when I had nothing. Okay. Yes. Thank you. The words felt inadequate, but they were all she had. The transfer went through immediately. Harrison confirmed it, made Julian promise to call tomorrow, and hung up. Julian turned to Tamara with a soft smile. Now stay. Have dinner with us. Let me start repaying the kindness you showed me. Tamara stayed. They ordered pizza, and Patricia regaled them with stories of her corporate days and her dramatic exit. They laughed and talked late into the night, three people from different worlds finding common ground in honesty and hope. Later, as Tamara lay in Patricia's guest bed, her phone showed the bank notification, $50,000 deposited. She cried then, quiet tears of relief and gratitude. This money would change everything for her and Rochelle. College tuition covered. Car repairs paid for. A buffer against the constant financial anxiety that had shadowed her for years. But more than the money, something else had shifted. She'd taken a chance on a stranger and found not just gratitude but connection. Julian wasn't just a wealthy man anymore. He was someone searching for meaning just like her. Someone trying to build a life that mattered. In the next room, Julian lay awake thinking similar thoughts. Tamara had given him something far more valuable than shelter. She'd given him a glimpse of a different way to live. A way based on kindness, on saying yes to helping people, on choosing connection over convenience. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight they were all safe, warm, and for the first time in a long time hopeful. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Patricia's guest room, and Tamara woke feeling more rested than she had in months. The weight that usually pressed on her chest first thing in the morning, the immediate mental checklist of bills and obligations, felt lighter. She checked her phone, confirming the bank deposit was real and not some stress-induced dream. $50,000. It was more money than she'd ever had at once in her entire life. She got up, dressed in yesterday's clothes, and followed the smell of coffee and bacon to Patricia's kitchen. Julian was already there, wearing borrowed clothes that fit him better than Tamara's had. He was standing at the stove, attempting to flip pancakes while Patricia supervised with barely concealed amusement. Careful, the spatula goes under the pancake before you flip, Patricia instructed. There. Good. See. Not so hard. I've never cooked anything in my life, Julian admitted, concentrating on the task with endearing intensity. This is harder than it looks. Most things worth doing are. Patricia noticed Tamara in the doorway and smiled. Good morning. Coffee's fresh. Morning. Tamara poured herself a cup, watching Julian carefully transfer his somewhat misshapen pancakes to a plate. You're cooking? Badly, but yes. He turned with a proud smile, holding up the plate. Patricia's teaching me basic life skills. Turns out I'm helpless in most practical ways. They ate together at Patricia's small kitchen table, sunlight making patterns on the worn wood. The pancakes were unevenly cooked, some parts crispy and some still slightly raw, but nobody complained. There was something sweet about watching Julian discover simple pleasures like cooking breakfast. I checked the news, Patricia said, pulling out her tablet. The story's evolving. Your family released another statement saying you're safe and taking time for personal reflection. Very diplomatic. That's Harrison's work, Julian said. He's good at managing the message. But public curiosity is intense. You're a trending topic on every social media platform. Lots of speculation about where you are and why you ran. Tamara leaned over to look at the screen. Photos of Julian and Vanessa at various society events filled the articles. They looked perfect together in the pictures, like models from a magazine spread. Tamara felt a strange pang looking at them. People are taking sides, Patricia continued, scrolling through comments. Some say you're spoiled and irresponsible. Others are calling you brave for choosing authenticity over expectation. There's even a hashtag, Runaway Groom. Julian grimaced. Wonderful. My life reduced to a hashtag. The internet moves fast, Tamara observed. This will blow over eventually. Maybe. But first I have to face everyone. Julian pushed his plate away, appetite gone. I've been thinking about what I said last night. About making a plan, stepping back from the business, doing something meaningful. But talking about it here in Patricia's safe kitchen is different from actually walking into that mansion and telling my mother I'm throwing away everything she's worked to prepare me for. Then don't think of it as throwing away, Patricia suggested. Think of it as transformation. You're not abandoning your responsibilities. You're reshaping them to align with who you actually are. Easy to say. Nothing about this is easy, Julian. But you've already done the hardest part. You made the choice. Now you just have to follow through. Tamara's phone rang, interrupting them. It was Rochelle. She stepped into the living room to answer. "Where are you?" her sister demanded immediately. "I came home last night and you weren't here. You didn't answer my calls. I almost called the police." "I'm sorry. Something came up. A friend needed help." "What friend?" "Tamara, you're scaring me. This isn't like you." Tamara took a breath. She couldn't tell Rochelle everything, not yet. "I promise I'm fine. I'll explain when I get home." "How was your study group?" "It was fine, but that's not what I—" Rochelle paused. "Wait, did you see your bank account? There's like a crazy amount of money in there. What's going on?" "That's part of what I need to explain in person. But Rochelle, that money is real. It's from helping someone who was in trouble. It's going to cover your tuition, help us get stable." "Tamara." Her sister's voice was small now, young. "You didn't do anything dangerous, did you? Nothing illegal?" "No, nothing like that. I just helped someone who needed it and they showed their gratitude. I promise you everything is okay." She glanced back at the kitchen where Julian and Patricia were talking quietly. "Better than okay, actually." They talked for a few more minutes, Tamara reassuring her sister until Rochelle finally relaxed. When she hung up and returned to the kitchen, Julian looked concerned. "Everything all right?" "My sister was worried. I don't usually disappear overnight without explanation." "I'm sorry. I've disrupted your whole life." "Stop apologizing," Tamara said gently. "I made my choices. Nobody forced me to help you." Patricia stood, collecting plates. "Julian, you should call your brother back. Start putting your plan into motion. And Tamara, you should probably head home soon. Your sister needs you." She was right, but Tamara found herself reluctant to leave. Something about the last 2 days had felt important, like she was part of something bigger than her daily routine. Going back to her regular life seemed suddenly small in comparison. Julian walked her to the car an hour later. They stood in Patricia's driveway, morning sun warming their faces, neither quite ready to say goodbye. "I can't thank you enough," Julian started. "You already did. Very generously." Tamara smiled, but it felt bittersweet. "Good luck with your family. I hope they understand what you're trying to do." "Will you?" Julian hesitated, looking uncertain. "Would it be okay if I stayed in touch? Called you sometimes? I don't have many friends who see me as just a person, not as a right heir or a business asset." "You do. I'd like that." They exchanged numbers properly, not just in case of emergency but with the intention of real friendship. Julian hugged her, and Tamara was surprised by how natural it felt, how right. "You changed my life," he said quietly. "I hope you know that. You changed mine too. That money will make everything different." "That's not what I meant." He pulled back, looking at her seriously. "You showed me that people can be kind without expecting anything in return. That there's a whole world of genuine connection out there if I'm brave enough to reach for it. That's worth more than any money." Tamara drove away a few minutes later, watching Julian and Patricia wave from the driveway in her rearview mirror. The drive home felt longer than the drive there, maybe because she was alone with her thoughts. She thought about Julian's words about changing lives. Had she really changed his? Or had she just been a convenient rest stop on his journey of self-discovery? And why did it matter so much to her either way? By the time she pulled up to her apartment building, returned Mrs. Chen's car, and climbed the stairs to her own place, she'd convinced herself it didn't matter. Julian would return to his world of wealth and privilege. She'd return to her shifts at the hospital and raising her sister. They'd text occasionally, maybe talk on the phone, but eventually they'd drift apart. Different worlds, different lives. Rochelle was waiting in the apartment, practically vibrating with curiosity and concern. "Start talking," she demanded the moment Tamara walked in. So Tamara told her an edited version of the story. She left out Julian's last name and specific details about his wealth, just saying she'd helped a man who was running from family obligations, and he'd shown his gratitude with generous payment. $50,000 is more than generous, Rochelle said, eyes wide. "Tam, that's life-changing money." "I know. We can pay off your car. Cover my tuition for the next year. Actually have savings. Breathe for the first time since Mom and Dad." She didn't finish the sentence. She never did. Tamara pulled her sister into a hug. "It's going to be okay. We're going to be okay." They spent the afternoon planning. Rochelle's tuition first, that was non-negotiable. Then Tamara's car repair. Emergency fund. Modest celebration dinner at the nice restaurant they'd always looked at but never gone to. "You deserve this," Rochelle said firmly. "You work so hard, you help everyone, and you never complain. Finally, someone helped you back." That night, after Rochelle went to bed, Tamara's phone lit up with a text from Julian. Made it through dinner with Patricia. Called Harrison. Family meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Terrified but ready. Thank you again for everything. She replied, you've got this. Be brave. 3 dots appeared then, only because you showed me how. Meanwhile, at Patricia's bookstore, Julian sat in the guest room preparing for the next day. He'd called Harrison back and scheduled a family meeting for the following evening. His mother, his brother, key family advisors. Time to face the music. Patricia knocked and entered with 2 mugs of chamomile tea. Can't sleep? Too much going through my head. She sat on the edge of the bed, handing him a mug. Want to practice your speech? I don't have a speech. Just thoughts. Feelings. No PowerPoint presentation to hide behind. Good. PowerPoints are for boardrooms. This needs to be from your heart. Patricia sipped her tea. You know what I see when I look at you now? Someone who's finally becoming real. These last 2 days you've shed about 10 layers of pretense. Keep going. Don't let them put those layers back on you. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I get back there and just fall into old patterns? You won't. You know why? Patricia smiled. Because you've seen the alternative now. You've experienced what it feels like to make your own choices, to connect with people genuinely. You can't unknow that feeling. It'll pull you forward even when you're scared. Tamara said something similar. About choosing yes instead of no, staying open instead of closed. She sounds wise. She is. She's also. Julian paused, not sure how to finish that sentence. She's remarkable. Kind and strong and real. Everything I've been missing in my life. Patricia raised an eyebrow. Careful there. What? You're in a vulnerable place. It's easy to confuse gratitude with something else. Don't put unfair expectations on this woman who helped you. I'm not. I just mean, she represents something. A way of living I want to learn. As long as you're learning from her example, not trying to possess it. Julian thought about that after Patricia left. Was he seeing Tamara clearly, or was he just projecting his desires for a different life onto her? It was hard to tell. Everything was so new, so raw. His phone buzzed with another message from Harrison. Mom's a wreck but she'll listen. I'm on your side. We'll get through this together. Then a message from Vanessa. I heard you're coming back. I'm glad. We should talk, clear the air properly. I'm not angry, just want closure for both of us. Everyone being so understanding almost made it harder. If they'd been furious, if they'd threatened to disown him, he could fight against that. But supportiveness meant he had to figure this out himself, without the fuel of rebellion. He texted Tamara again. Quick question. How do you know when you're making the right choice versus just the easy choice? Her reply came quickly. The right choice usually scares you a little. The easy choice numbs you. Does that help? Yes. Thank you. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's a big day. Tomorrow's the first real day of my life. No pressure, right? You've already done the hard part. The rest is just details. You like that? The rest is just details. He repeated it to himself as he tried to sleep, as dawn eventually came, as he prepared to return to his old life and demand space for his new self. Tamara returned to work the next day, jumping back into her regular routine. But everything felt slightly different, like someone had adjusted the color saturation of her life. Patients seemed more interesting. Co-workers' conversations felt more meaningful. Even the hospital's fluorescent lights seemed less harsh. You seem different, her friend and co-worker Jamie commented during their break. Good different. What happened? I helped someone. They helped me back. It just reminded me why I do this work. Must have been some patient. Something like that. Tamara's phone buzzed constantly throughout her shift. Updates from Julian as he drove back to the city, as he approached the mansion, as he prepared for the family meeting. She replied between patients, offering encouragement and support. By evening, she was home with Rochelle, making dinner and pretending everything was normal. But her phone sat on the counter and she kept glancing at it, waiting for news. Finally, at 8 p.m. it rang. Julian's name on the screen. Hey, she answered, stepping onto the small balcony for privacy. How did it go? Better than expected. Worse than hoped for. His voice sounded tired but steady. My mother cried. Harrison backed me up. The advisors think I'm insane. But we reached a compromise. Tell me. Julian explained. He'd step back from the CEO track but remain on the board. He'd start a foundation focused on community development, using his business expertise and family connections to fund and support grassroots organizations. He'd have 6 months to prove the concept before they re-evaluated. It's not perfect, he admitted. But it's a start. It's mine. That's amazing, Julian. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done this without you. The example you set, the kindness you showed, it gave me courage I didn't know I had. They talked for an hour, Julian sharing details of the meeting, Tamara telling him about her shift at the hospital. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, like they'd known each other for years instead of days. When can I see you again? Julian asked as the call was winding down. I mean properly. Not me running away or hiding out. Just as friends who want to spend time together. Whenever you want. I'm not hard to find. How about this weekend? I could come to you, take you and your sister to dinner? A proper thank you. You don't have to keep thanking me. I know. But I want to. Please? Tamara smiled into the phone. Okay. Yes. We'd like that. After they hung up, she stood on the balcony a while longer looking out at her neighborhood. The same building she saw every day, the same sounds and smells. But something fundamental had shifted. She'd taken a chance on a stranger and found more than just financial reward. She'd found a reminder that the world was bigger than her struggles, that connection was possible across any divide, that kindness really did come back around. Inside, Rochelle called out asking for help with homework. Tamara went back inside to her regular life, to the sister she was raising and the responsibilities she carried. But now there was something new alongside all that, possibility. The possibility that her act of kindness might grow into genuine friendship. That Julian's transformation might inspire her own. That two people from different worlds might actually stay connected, building something meaningful together. The rest would be details, she thought, remembering her own words to Julian. The hard part, the choosing part, was done. Everything else would unfold in its own time. And for the first time in years, Tamara felt genuinely excited about what might come next. The news cycle never really slowed down. Even 3 days after Julian's return and the family meeting that had set his new path in motion, reporters still camped outside the Wright estate. Helicopters occasionally buzzed overhead, hoping for a glimpse of the runaway groom who'd captured public imagination. Inside the mansion, Julian sat in his father's old study, now technically his brother's office, reviewing proposals for his new foundation. The room smelled of leather and old books, a scent that used to comfort him but now felt suffocating. He'd opened a window despite the October chill, needing fresh air and the sound of real life beyond the estate's walls. Harrison walked in without knocking, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Mom wants to have dinner tonight. Family only. She says she's accepted your decision but wants to discuss the details. Translation: she's going to try to change my mind. Probably. Harrison sat across from him, pushing 1 coffee cup toward Julian. But I'll be there. United front, remember? When did you become so supportive of my rebellion? Julian asked, accepting the coffee gratefully. You're the perfect son. You should be on Mom's side. I am the perfect son, Harrison agreed with a slight smile. But I also remember what it felt like when I told Dad I wanted to marry Olivia instead of the 3 other women he'd selected as appropriate matches. He fought me on it. Art. And I almost gave in. Julian hadn't known that. What changed? I asked myself which choice I could live with. Disappointing Dad or disappointing myself. Harrison's expression turned serious. Turned out I could survive Dad's anger a lot better than my own regret. I'm guessing you feel the same way. Yeah, I do. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the kind of quiet that only exists between siblings who've survived the same difficult childhood. Harrison broke it first. So, this woman, Tamara. You've been texting her constantly. She's become a friend. Is that all? Julian met his brother's knowing look. Yes, that's all. She helped me when I needed it most. I'm grateful. Gratitude doesn't usually require hourly text updates. We have things in common. She gets it, the pressure of expectations, the weight of responsibility. She's raising her younger sister alone, working 2 jobs sometimes, making it all work. She inspires me. You know people are going to talk if you're seen with her. Let them talk. Julian's voice had an edge to it. That's exactly the kind of thinking I'm trying to move away from. The idea that I can only associate with people from approved social circles, that every relationship has to be calculated for optics. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just warning you. Harrison leaned forward. This foundation you're starting, it's already controversial. The board thinks it's a waste of resources. Some family friends think you're having some kind of breakdown. If you start dating a nurse you met while running away from your wedding? I'm not dating her. And even if I were, so what? So nothing. I'm just saying be prepared for the scrutiny. For both your sakes. After Harrison left, Julian stared at his phone. Tamara's last message sat there. Good luck with your mom tonight. Stand your ground but stay kind. Those aren't opposites. She had a way of cutting through complexity with simple wisdom. He'd spent years in business school, learning complex strategies and management theories. But Tamara, with her nurse's practicality and genuine goodness, often saw solutions he'd miss entirely. He wanted to see her again. Not just text but actually spend time together. Their dinner plan for the weekend felt too far away. He wanted to share his day with her, hear about hers, exist in the same space without crisis or urgency. That thought made him pause. Patricia's warning echoed in his mind, don't confuse gratitude with something else. Was he doing that? Using Tamara as a symbol for the life he wanted instead of appreciating her as a person? The uncertainty bothered him more than he wanted to admit. Across the city, Tamara was dealing with her own complications. The hospital administrator had called her into his office that morning, and the meeting hadn't gone well. Someone's been asking questions about you, Mr. Peterson had said, his usually friendly face serious. A private investigator, claiming to be doing background research for a potential employer. Tamara's stomach had dropped. What kind of questions? Your employment history, your character, your financial situation. I didn't give him anything, of course. We protect our staff's privacy. But I thought you should know. Now, sitting in the break room during her lunch hour, Tamara tried to figure out what to do. It had to be related to Julian. Someone from his family, maybe, or the Montgomery family investigating who'd helped their runaway groom. The thought made her angry and anxious in equal measure. She called Julian immediately. Are people looking into me? She asked without preamble when he answered. What? No. Why would? He paused. What happened? She explained about the private investigator. Julian's sharp intake of breath told her this was news to him. I'll find out who's behind this, he said, voice tight with anger. This is exactly the kind of intrusive, controlling behavior I'm trying to get away from. I'm so sorry, Tamara. Just make it stop. I can't have investigators digging into my life. I have Rochelle to protect. I will. I promise. Give me 2 hours. He called back in one. It was Vanessa's father, Richard Montgomery. He's trying to figure out what happened, who you are, if there's any story there he needs to control. I spoke with him directly. It's handled. Handled how? I told him the truth. That you're a friend who helped me, period. That there's no scandal, no secret relationship, nothing interesting for his investigators to find. And I told him if he doesn't back off immediately, I'll make sure every media outlet knows the Montgomery family is harassing a nurse who did nothing wrong. You threatened him? I used the language he understands. Reputation and control. Julian's voice softened. I really am sorry. This is my world bleeding into yours in the worst way. Is this what it's going to be like? People investigating everyone you talk to, suspicious of every friendship? Not if I have anything to say about it. I'm drawing boundaries, Tamara. That starts with protecting the people I care about. The phrase people I care about made something warm bloom in her chest. She pushed the feeling aside, staying focused. Just keep your promise. No more investigators. You have my word. After they hung up, Tamara sat with her half-eaten lunch, no longer hungry. This was the reality of being connected to someone like Julian. Even friendship came with complications, scrutiny, and unwanted attention. Was it worth it? She thought about the texts they'd exchanged over the past few days. His excitement about foundation ideas. Her stories from the hospital. The easy way they talked, the natural flow of conversation. Yes, she decided. It was worth it. But she'd need to be careful, protect herself and especially Rochelle from the more intrusive aspects of Julian's world. That evening, Julian sat at the formal dining table with his mother and Harrison. The table could seat 20, but the three of them clustered at one end, trying to make the massive space feel intimate. It didn't work. His mother, Catherine Wright, looked every inch the society matriarch in her blue designer dress and perfectly styled hair. But her eyes were red-rimmed and she'd lost weight since the wedding disaster. I've been thinking, she started once the first course was served by silent staff, about your foundation idea. Mom? Harrison started, but she held up a hand. Let me finish. I've been thinking about it and I understand why you want to do this. Your father would have. Your father would have respected the impulse, even if he disagreed with the execution, Catherine continued, her voice measured. But Julian, you have to understand. The family has obligations. Expectations from shareholders, from partners, from society. You can't just walk away from all of that. I'm not walking away, Julian said calmly. I'm redirecting. There's a difference. Redirecting into what? Charity work? Julian, we already donate millions each year. We sit on boards, we write checks, we attend galas. That's how people like us contribute. That's how we feel like we're contributing while maintaining comfortable distance from actual problems, Julian countered. Mom, when's the last time you actually met someone whose life was changed by our donations? Not at a gala where they thank us for 5 minutes but really spent time with them, understood their struggles. Catherine's jaw tightened. That's not the point of philanthropy. Maybe it should be. Harrison interjected before the conversation could escalate. Mom, Julian's foundation could actually be good for the family brand. Community engagement is popular right now. Authentic connection with regular people. It could position Right Industries as more than just another corporation. Don't patronize me with marketing speak, Harrison. I know what this is really about. Catherine looked directly at Julian. You met some woman. A nurse of all things. And now you think you understand how regular people live. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Her name is Tamara, Julian said quietly. And she's not some woman. She's someone who showed me kindness when she didn't have to. Who helped me without expecting anything in return. Who lives her life with more integrity than most people in our social circle combined. You barely know her. I know enough. And before you send any more investigators after her, understand this. She is completely off limits. Her life, her sister, her work. All of it. If I find out anyone from this family or the Montgomerys is looking into her, I will go to the press myself with the whole story. Catherine's eyes widened. You wouldn't. Try me. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush diamonds. Finally, Catherine set down her fork with deliberate precision. Fine. No investigators. No interference. But Julian, I need you to think carefully about what you're doing. Mixing our world with... She paused, choosing her words carefully. With people from very different circumstances can end badly. For everyone involved. Or it can end beautifully, Julian said. Like when Harrison married Olivia, who came from a middle-class family in Ohio and who you fought against until you realized she made him genuinely happy. Catherine had the grace to look slightly ashamed. That was different. It really wasn't. Dinner continued in uncomfortable quiet. Harrison tried several times to restart conversation, but the tension wouldn't break. When dessert was finally cleared, Julian excused himself and headed to his private wing of the mansion. His suite was enormous. Bedroom, sitting room, private bathroom bigger than most apartments. Everything was decorated in expensive neutrals, professionally designed to be elegant and impersonal. He hated it. It felt like a hotel room, beautiful and soulless. He pulled out his phone and texted Tamara. Family dinner was rough. Mom knows about you. I handled it but wanted you to know. Her reply came quickly. Define handled. Told her you were off limits. No more investigations. She agreed. Did she really agree or did she just stop arguing? Julian smiled despite himself. Tamara had a way of cutting through social niceties to actual truth. The latter, probably. But I made my position clear. She knows I'm serious. Your mother doesn't approve of me. She doesn't even know me and she doesn't approve. She doesn't approve of change. Any change. But that's her issue, not ours. There was a long pause before Tamara's next message. Julian, maybe we should slow down. The friendship, I mean. Give things time to settle. I can't have my life turned upside down right now. Rochelle needs stability. Julian stared at the message, chest tightening. I understand. But can I still see you this weekend? Just dinner like we planned? I promise, no drama, no complications. Okay. But after that, we should probably take some space. Let everything calm down. Okay. But it wasn't okay. The thought of losing this connection, this friendship that felt more real than anything in his life, made Julian feel hollow. Still, he understood. He'd brought chaos into Tamara's carefully balanced life. The least he could do was respect her need for distance. The next few days were busy for both of them. Julian threw himself into foundation planning, meeting with advisors, drafting mission statements, identifying potential focus areas. He wanted to target 3 main areas: healthcare access for low-income communities, educational support for first-generation college students, and small business development in underserved neighborhoods. Each area connected somehow to Tamara, though he tried not to think about that too much. Healthcare because of her work as a nurse. Education because of her sister Rochelle's struggles to afford college. Small business because of Mrs. Chen and the bodega owner and all the other hard-working people in Tamara's neighborhood who were trying to build something meaningful. Tamara meanwhile focused on work in Rochelle. She picked up extra shifts, partly because she could now afford to work less and wanted to build up her savings, partly because staying busy kept her from overthinking the Julian situation. "You've been weird since that mystery friend paid you," Rochelle observed one evening. They were cooking dinner together, working around each other in their tiny kitchen with practiced ease. "Distracted. Happy but also sad." "What's going on?" "Nothing. Just processing some changes." "Changes like $50,000? "Changes like meeting someone who reminded me that life can be bigger than I've been letting it be." Rochelle stopped chopping vegetables and looked at her sister seriously. "This friend. Are they more than a friend?" "No. Just friends." But even as Tamara said it, she wasn't completely sure it was true. The constant texting, the way her heart jumped when Julian's name appeared on her phone, the disappointment she felt when she'd suggested taking space. Those weren't just friendship feelings. "But you want them to be?" "It doesn't matter what I want. We're from completely different worlds. It could never work." "That's what people said about Mom and Dad," Rochelle pointed out. "Dad was from a wealthy family, Mom was a teacher's daughter. Everyone said it wouldn't work. And it did for 20 years until—" She didn't finish, but Tamara knew. "Until the car accident that took both their parents 2 years ago, leaving Tamara to raise her 15-year-old sister alone." "Mom and Dad were different," Tamara said softly. "Maybe. Or maybe love just finds a way when people are brave enough to let it." Saturday arrived too quickly and not fast enough. Julian picked them up in a modest sedan, not the luxury car Tamara had been half expecting. He dressed casually in jeans and a blue sweater, clearly trying to blend in rather than stand out. "You must be Rochelle," he said warmly when Tamara's sister answered the door. "I've heard great things about you." Rochelle shook his hand, her eyes widening slightly. Tamara had shown her a photo, prepared her for Julian's appearance, but seeing him in person was different. He looked like someone from a magazine even in casual clothes. "Thanks for the college money," Rochelle said bluntly. "That was really generous." Julian blinked then laughed. "Your sister earned it. I just showed appropriate gratitude." They went to a nice restaurant, but not an overly fancy one. Julian had clearly chosen carefully. Upscale enough to feel special, casual enough that Tamara and Rochelle wouldn't feel out of place. Over dinner he asked Rochelle about her studies, her goals, her interests. He listened with genuine attention, asked follow-up questions, treated her like an equal rather than some kid he had to tolerate to spend time with her sister. "What are you studying?" he asked. "Pre-law. I want to be a public defender." Rochelle's eyes lit up as she talked. "I know it doesn't pay well, but I want to help people who can't afford good legal representation. The system's so stacked against poor people." "That's admirable. Really admirable." Julian glanced at Tamara. "Your sister's raising you right." "She raised herself," Tamara said softly. "I just tried not to mess it up too badly." After dinner they walked along the riverfront. The night was cool but clear, city lights reflecting off the water. Rochelle walked ahead, giving them space while staying within earshot. "She's great," Julian said. "Smart, passionate, good-hearted. Like her sister." "You don't have to compliment us, Julian. We're already friends." "I'm not just being nice. I mean it." He stopped walking, turning to face her. The lights from the bridge cast shadows across his face. "Tamara, I know you said we should take some space after tonight. And I'll respect that. But I need you to know something first." "What?" "Meeting you changed my life. Not just because you helped me escape or gave me shelter. You showed me what genuine kindness looks like. What it means to live with integrity, to make choices based on values instead of expectations. I've spent the last week trying to build something meaningful because you inspired me to believe it's possible." Tamara's throat tightened. "Julian, I'm not saying this to pressure you or make things complicated. I just need you to know that whatever happens next, whether we stay close friends or drift apart, you've already made a lasting impact. You've already mattered." She looked at him, this man who had everything but had felt empty until he chose to run toward authenticity. She saw his vulnerability, his hope, his genuine care. And she felt her own walls cracking. "You've impacted me too," she admitted. "You reminded me that taking risks can lead somewhere beautiful. That saying yes to helping people opens doors I didn't know existed. That kindness really does come back around." They stood there by the river, two people from different worlds who'd found unexpected connection. Rochelle had stopped farther up the path, pretending to look at her phone but clearly keeping watch. What if we didn't take space? Julian asked quietly. What if we just stayed friends and saw where it leads? Your family won't approve. There will be complications. There are always complications. The question is whether the connection is worth navigating them. Tamara thought about her own advice to him. The right choice usually scares you a little. This scared her. But it also felt right in a way few things in her life ever had. Okay, she said. We stay friends. We see where it leads. But slowly, Julian. I need to protect Rochelle. And myself. Slowly. I can do slowly. His smile was radiant. Thank you. They walked back to join Rochelle, who pretended she hadn't been watching them with interest. On the drive home, the conversation flowed easily. Julian told them about his foundation plans, asked for their input on what communities actually needed versus what wealthy donors thought they needed. Don't assume you know what poor people want, Rochelle said bluntly. Ask them. Hire people from the communities you're trying to help. Give them real power in decision-making, not just token representation. That's exactly right, Julian agreed. Will you help me? As a consultant or advisor? Paid position, of course. Rochelle's eyes went wide. Seriously? Completely seriously. I need perspective from people who've actually lived the challenges my foundation wants to address. You'd be perfect. Tamara watched this exchange with a mixture of pride and caution. Julian was genuine, she believed that. But she also knew how easy it would be for him to consume their lives, to turn them into projects or proof of his own transformation. She'd need to stay vigilant, maintain boundaries, protect what mattered most. When they reached the apartment building, Julian walked them to the door. Thank you for tonight, he said. For giving me a chance to know you both better. For not writing me off as just some rich guy who doesn't understand real life. You're not just some rich guy, Tamara said. You're Julian. Complicated, thoughtful, brave Julian who's trying to figure out how to live authentically. That person is worth knowing. After he left, Rochelle turned to her sister with knowing eyes. You like him? Like really like him? He's a friend. Tam, I saw how you looked at each other. That's not just friendship. It's complicated. Everything worth having is complicated. Rochelle grabbed her sister's hand. Mom used to say that. Remember? When people would ask her about marrying outside her social class, about all the judgment they faced. She'd say, everything worth having is complicated, but that doesn't make it wrong. Tamara squeezed her sister's hand, tears pricking her eyes. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best. Inside the apartment they got ready for bed. But Tamara lay awake long after Rochelle's breathing evened into sleep. Her phone sat on the nightstand, dark and silent. She picked it up, typed a message to Julian, then deleted it. Typed another, deleted that too. Finally she settled on, tonight was perfect. Thank you. His reply came immediately, like he'd been waiting. First of many, I hope. I hope so too. Across the city, Julian lay in his enormous bed in his impersonal suite, feeling more at home than he had in years. Not because of where he was, but because of where he'd been. With Tamara and Rochelle, in their world of genuine connection and honest conversation. His phone buzzed with a message from Harrison. Mom's calming down. How was dinner? Perfect. She's perfect. They both are. Be careful, little brother. You're in deep and you might not even realize it yet. Julian stared at that message for a long time. Harrison was right. He was falling for Tamara, probably had been since that first rainy night when she'd chosen to help a desperate stranger. But what could he do about it? She needed slow, needed space, needed protection from the chaos of his world. So he'd give her all of that. He'd be patient, respectful, careful. He'd prove that he could be a safe person in her life, someone who added value rather than complication. And maybe, eventually, if he was very lucky, she'd be ready for something more. For now, friendship was enough. Being in her orbit was enough. Learning from her example was enough. Almost enough anyway. 2 weeks passed in a comfortable rhythm. Julian and Tamara texted daily, sometimes about important things, often about nothing at all. He'd send her photos of foundation planning meetings with captions like, trying to look like I know what I'm doing. She'd send him snippets from her hospital shifts. Patient just asked if I'm single because her grandson needs a nice girl. I'm 28 and still getting set up by strangers. It felt natural, easy. Like they'd known each other for years instead of weeks. Rochelle started attending foundation planning meetings as a paid consultant, offering perspective that made Julian's expensive advisors uncomfortable with how often she was right. Catherine Wright had reluctantly accepted the arrangement, though she still hadn't agreed to meet Tamara in person. Give her time, Harrison advised during one of their morning coffee meetings. She's processing a lot of change. The wedding disaster, your career pivot, now this friendship with Tamara. It's overwhelming for her. I'm not asking Mom to accept Tamara as a friend or advisor. I'm asking her to treat another human being with basic respect. Baby steps, Jules. That Saturday morning, Julian called Tamara with an unexpected proposal. I need to drive to my family's lake house upstate, he explained. There are some documents there for the foundation, old charity files my father kept. Would you want to come with me? Make a day of it? Tamara hesitated. Time alone together, away from the city, felt like crossing a line they'd been carefully avoiding. Julian? I know how it sounds, but I promise this isn't some romantic scheme. I just genuinely enjoy your company, and 4 hours alone in a car sounds unbearable without someone to talk to. Plus, the lake house is beautiful this time of year. You could bring Rochelle if you want a chaperone. She laughed at that. A chaperone? What is this, 1950? I'm trying to be respectful of your boundaries. Is it working? Sort of. Okay, yes. I'll come. But Rochelle has a study group today, so it'll just be us. Just us works for me. He picked her up in the same modest sedan, this time wearing jeans and a red flannel shirt that made him look like a college student rather than a billionaire heir. Tamara wore comfortable clothes too, leggings and an oversized green sweater, her hair pulled up in a messy bun. You look comfortable, Julian observed as she climbed into the car. That's the goal. You said 4 hours in a car. I dressed accordingly. The drive started easy. They talked about everything and nothing, comfortable silence punctuated by bursts of conversation. Julian told her about foundation progress, about the surprising support from some board members and the expected resistance from others. Tamara shared hospital stories, the triumphs and heartbreaks that came with nursing. An hour into the drive, they stopped at a gas station. Julian went inside to pay while Tamara filled the tank. She was replacing the gas cap when a woman approached her. Excuse me, the woman said, phone in hand. Aren't you that nurse? The one who helped Julian right when he ran from his wedding. Tamara's stomach dropped. I don't know what you're talking about. I saw you with him just now. I've been following the story online. There are theories that you two are secretly together, that you were the reason he left Vanessa Montgomery. Those theories are wrong. We're just friends. Can I get a picture? This would be huge for my social media. No. Please respect my privacy. The woman looked disappointed but backed off. Julian emerged from the gas station just as she walked away, immediately sensing something was wrong. What happened? Tamara explained as they got back in the car. Julian's jaw tightened with anger. I'm so sorry. I should have thought about this, about the possibility of being recognized. It's fine. She didn't take a picture. It's not fine. You should be able to exist in the world without strangers approaching you about my life. They drove in tense silence for a few minutes before Tamara spoke again. This is what it's going to be like, isn't it? If we stay friends, if we spend time together publicly. People recognizing us, making assumptions, spreading rumors. Yes, probably. Julian gripped the steering wheel tighter. I can't promise it won't happen. But I can promise I'll do everything in my power to protect your privacy. You can't control other people. No. But I can control myself. If this is too much, if being my friend brings more stress than joy, I'll understand if you want to step back. Tamara looked at his profile, at the tension in his shoulders, the guilt written across his face. She thought about the last 2 weeks, about how much lighter she'd felt having him in her life. About the perspective he brought, the way he challenged her assumptions and expanded her worldview. I don't want to step back, she said quietly. But I need to know this won't spiral. That my sister won't get harassed, that my coworkers won't start treating me differently, that my whole life won't become public property. I'll make sure it doesn't. Whatever I have to do. They stopped for lunch at a small diner similar to the one they'd visited on their first trip. This time nobody recognized them. They ate burgers and shared fries, the earlier tension gradually dissolving into their usual easy dynamic. Tell me about the lake house, Tamara said. What's it like? It's where we went every summer when I was a kid. Before my father got too busy, before Harrison and I got too caught up in preparing to inherit the business. It was the one place where we could just be a family without performance. Sounds nice. It was. My mother would make pancakes in the morning, Dad would take us fishing even though he was terrible at it, Harrison and I would swim until we were exhausted. Simple things. That's what you miss, isn't it? The simplicity. Yes. Everything in my world is complicated. Layered with agenda and image and calculation. Even charity is strategic. But at the lake house, things were just what they were. They arrived in early afternoon. The lake house sat at the end of a long driveway, surrounded by trees in their full autumn glory. The house itself was large but not ostentatious, built of warm wood with a wraparound porch and a dock extending into the clear lake water. "It's beautiful," Tamara breathed. "Come on. I'll show you around." Inside, the house felt frozen in time. Family photos covered the walls. Young Julian and Harrison fishing, Catherine and their father dancing at some formal event, all four of them building sandcastles on a beach somewhere. Everything was decorated simply, comfortably, with worn furniture and braided rugs that had clearly seen years of family life. "This feels more like a home than your mansion does," Tamara observed. "It is. We haven't been here much since Dad died. It hurts Mom too much, I think. All the memories." They found the documents Julian needed in his father's study, old charity files and foundation proposals that had never been implemented. While Julian sorted through papers, Tamara wandered the house, looking at photos, touching the spines of well-read books, feeling the echoes of family life that had once filled these rooms. In the living room she found a piano. She lifted the cover, pressed a few keys. They were slightly out of tune but still musical. "You play?" Julian had appeared in the doorway. "A little. My mom taught me before she died." "Will you play something?" Tamara sat at the bench and played a simple piece, one of the first her mother had taught her. Her fingers were rusty and she hit several wrong notes, but the music filled the space beautifully. "That was lovely," Julian said when she finished. "It was sloppy. It was real." "That's better." They made sandwiches from supplies Julian had brought, eating on the porch while looking out at the lake. The afternoon sun was warm despite the autumn chill, and everything felt peaceful in a way Tamara hadn't experienced in years. "I could see why you'd want to come here," she said. "To escape, to think, to just breathe." "It's different sharing it with someone," Julian admitted. "I've been here alone a few times since Dad died. It just felt empty. But with you here it feels alive again." The moment hung between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Tamara felt her heart rate pick up. They were alone in a beautiful place talking about feelings, looking at each other like people who wanted more than friendship. She stood abruptly. "We should probably head back soon. It's a long drive." "Right. Yes." Julian stood too, looking almost disappointed. "Let me just grab the files." On the drive home, the energy between them had shifted. Not awkward exactly, but charged. Where? Like they were both thinking about things neither was ready to say. "Thank you for coming today," Julian said as they hit the highway. "It meant more than you know. Thank you for inviting me. It's good to see where you came from, understand what you're trying to get back to." "Not trying to get back to. Trying to move forward to." "There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Going back means trying to recreate something that's already gone. Moving forward means taking the good parts and building something new. Something better." Tamara considered that. "Is that what you're doing with the foundation? Taking the good parts of your family's legacy and building something better?" "That's the plan. Whether I succeed remains to be seen." Halfway home, Julian's phone rang through the car's speakers. Harrison's name appeared on the dashboard display. "I should take this," Julian said. "Harry never calls unless it's important." "Go ahead." Julian answered. "Hey, what's up? Where are you?" Harrison's voice was tight with stress. "Driving back from the lake house." "Why?" "Mom's in the hospital. She collapsed at a charity luncheon. Heart attack." The car swerved slightly as Julian's hands jerked on the wheel. "What? Is she okay?" "She's stable. They got her to the hospital fast. But Jules, you need to get here. She's asking for you." "I'm 2 hours out. I'm coming now." "Drive safe. But hurry." The call ended and Julian pressed harder on the accelerator. "Julian?" Tamara started. "I need to get there." "I know. But not if you're going to drive recklessly and end up in an accident yourself." He slowed slightly, hands shaking on the wheel. Tamara could see him trying to hold it together to stay focused, but the fear was eating at him. "Pull over," she said firmly. "What?" "No, I need to." "Pull over. I'm driving." Julian pulled into a rest area and they switched seats. Tamara took the wheel, navigating back onto the highway with calm competence. "Tell me about your mom," she said as she drove. "Good things. Happy memories." For the next 2 hours, Julian talked. About Catherine teaching him to read before he started school. About her laugh, which she didn't share often enough anymore. About how she'd sat by his bed every night when he had pneumonia at 8 years old, reading to him until he fell asleep. About her strength after his father died, holding the family together even when she was falling apart inside. Tamara listened, keeping them moving toward the hospital, occasionally reaching over to squeeze Julian's hand when his voice broke. They reached the city as full dark settled. Tamara drove straight to County Medical, where Harrison had said Catherine was being treated. Julian was out of the car before she'd even fully parked. "Go," she said. "I'll handle parking and catch up." He squeezed her hand once, hard, then ran toward the emergency entrance. Tamara parked the car and sat for a moment, hands on the wheel, processing. She barely knew Catherine right. The woman had sent investigators after her, disapproved of the friendship, made it clear Tamara wasn't welcome in their family. But she was Julian's mother, and Julian loved her desperately. That was enough. Inside the hospital, Tamara found the cardiac unit easily. She'd worked in this hospital long enough to navigate it blindfolded. The waiting area was small and private, clearly reserved for VIP patients. Julian stood with Harrison, both of them looking shell-shocked. "How is she?" Tamara asked quietly. "Stable," Harrison said. "Mild heart attack. They think stress triggered it. She's going to be okay, but they want to keep her overnight for observation." Julian just stood there, staring at the closed door to his mother's room. "Have you seen her yet?" Tamara asked. "No. They're running some final tests. Should be able to go in soon." He looked at Tamara and she saw tears on his face. "I've been so angry with her. For pushing the wedding, for judging my choices, for being unable to accept change. And now, she's your mom. Of course you're angry and scared and loving her all at once. That's how family works." A doctor emerged from Catherine's room, and Harrison immediately moved to speak with her. Julian stayed frozen in place. Tamara stood beside him, not touching, just present. "Thank you," he whispered. "For driving. For being here. For everything. Where else would I be?" The doctor finished talking to Harrison and approached them. "She's asking for both her sons. You can go in now." Julian looked at Tamara. "Will you?" "I'll be right here. Go be with your mom." He and Harrison disappeared into the room. Tamara sat in the waiting area, feeling strange and out of place. This was family business. She was just a friend. But Julian had wanted her there, had held her hand in the car, had needed her presence. That had to mean something. 20 minutes later, Harrison emerged alone. "She wants to see you," he said to Tamara. "Me? Why?" "No idea. But she specifically asked for the nurse my son brought with him." Harrison's expression was unreadable. Fair warning. Mom's direct even when she's not recovering from a heart attack. Tamara's heart pounded as she entered the hospital room. Catherine Wright lay in the bed, looking smaller and more vulnerable than Tamara had imagined from Julian's descriptions. Monitors beeped softly. Julian sat in a chair beside the bed, holding his mother's hand. "Mrs. Wright," Tamara said softly. "I'm Tamara Brooks. I know who you are." Catherine's voice was weak but clear. "Julian won't stop talking about you. Tamara this, Tamara that. The wonderful nurse who showed him kindness." "Mom?" Julian started. "Hush. I'm not done." Catherine turned her focus to Tamara. "I had you investigated. I'm sure you know that. Julian told me to stop and I did, but not before I learned enough. Single mother to your sister since you were 26. Nursing degree you put yourself through while working 2 jobs. No criminal record, no scandals, no red flags. Just a good person trying to do right by her family. I hope that reassured you," Tamara said, unsure where this was going. "It terrified me." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "Because it means you're real. Not some opportunist, not someone trying to use my son. Just a genuinely good person. And that means Julian's attachment to you is genuine too. Which means I can't dismiss this as a phase or rebellion." "Mom, you're supposed to be resting," Julian interjected. "I almost died today, Julian. If not now, when?" Catherine took a shaky breath. "I've been fighting against your choices because I was afraid. Afraid of losing control, afraid of the family changing, afraid of you getting hurt. But lying in that ambulance, unable to breathe, all I could think was that I've been so focused on protecting our legacy that I forgot to just love my sons." She looked at Tamara. "He's different since he met you. Lighter. More himself. I've been resenting that, seeing you as the cause of all the disruption. But you're not the cause. You're the catalyst. The person who helped him find the courage to choose his own path." "I just helped someone who needed it," Tamara said quietly. "No. You did more than that. You showed him what genuine kindness looks like. What it means to live with integrity. I should be thanking you, not investigating you." Julian's eyes were wet. Mom, you don't have to do this now. Rest. We can talk later. No. I need to say this while I have the courage. Catherine squeezed her son's hand. I'm sorry. For pushing you into that wedding, for not listening when you said you weren't ready, for making your life choices about family image instead of your happiness. You deserve better. You've always deserved better. Mom? And you? Catherine turned back to Tamara. Thank you. For helping my son. For being his friend. For showing him a different way to live. I'm sorry I made you feel unwelcome. That ends now. Anyone who makes Julian this happy is welcome in this family. Tamara felt tears on her own cheeks. Thank you. That means more than you know. Now both of you get out. I'm tired and I need to rest. But Julian, come back tomorrow. Bring your friend. We'll have lunch and talk about this foundation properly. I want to understand what you're trying to build. Outside the room, Julian pulled Tamara into a tight hug. She felt him shaking, releasing all the fear and stress of the last few hours. That was incredible, he whispered into her hair. She never admits she's wrong. Never apologizes. You must have made quite an impression. I think almost dying made the impression. I just happened to be standing there when she decided to acknowledge it. They pulled apart, and Julian looked at her with such tenderness that Tamara's breath caught. For a moment she thought he might kiss her. But Harrison appeared in the hallway, breaking the moment. Family meeting tomorrow, he announced. Mom wants to discuss the foundation. All hands on deck. She's supposed to be resting, Julian protested. You try telling her that. I'll wait. They left the hospital together. Harrison drove Julian's car home while Tamara called for a ride share to take her back to her apartment. But as they stood in the hospital parking lot waiting for her car to arrive, Julian held her hand. Thank you, he said again. For everything today. For driving, for being here, for talking to my mom even though you had every reason to refuse. That's what friends do. Is that all we are? The question hung between them. Friends? Tamara looked at their joined hands, felt the warmth of his skin against hers, saw the hope and fear battling in his eyes. She wanted to say yes, wanted to keep the safe label of friendship. But she'd also promised herself to be honest, to live authentically, to not hide from truth even when it scared her. I don't know, she admitted. But I think we might be more than that. Becoming more than that. If we let ourselves. I want to let myself. More than I've wanted anything in a long time. Then we'll see where it goes. Slowly. Carefully. But honestly. Honestly, Julian agreed. That's all I want. Honesty. Authenticity. Something real. Her ride arrived and Tamara had to let go of his hand. But as she drove away, looking back to see Julian standing in the parking lot watching her go, she felt something shift inside her. Fear giving way to possibility. Caution opening to hope. Maybe different worlds could connect. Maybe genuine feelings could bridge any divide. Maybe taking this risk, letting herself feel more than friendship for Julian Wright, wasn't reckless but brave. She'd find out soon enough. And somehow that uncertainty felt less terrifying than it had before. Because whatever happened next, they'd face it honestly. Together. The next morning, Tamara woke to 17 missed calls and 34 text messages. Her heart jumped, immediately thinking something had happened to Catherine or Julian. But as she scrolled through the notifications, she realized the problem was something else entirely. Someone had posted a photo from the hospital parking lot last night. Julian holding her hand. The two of them standing close, clearly in an intimate moment. The caption read, "Runaway groom and mystery nurse, more than friends?" The photo had been shared thousands of times. News outlets had picked it up. Speculation was everywhere. Her phone rang again. This time she answered. It was Jamie from work. "Have you seen the internet?" her friend asked without preamble. "I'm looking at it now. Girl, you're famous. Everyone's talking about you and Julian Wright. The whole hospital is buzzing. Mr. Peterson wants to see you when you come in." "What? This has nothing to do with work." "I know that. You know that. But there are reporters calling the hospital asking for comments. He's probably just doing damage control." After Jamie hung up, Tamara called Rochelle, who answered on the first ring. "Are you okay?" her sister asked. "I saw the photos. People are saying crazy things online." "I'm fine. It's just gossip. It'll blow over." "Tam, there are reporters outside our building. Mrs. Chen wouldn't let them in, but they're out there waiting." Tamara's stomach sank. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of. Her private life becoming public property, her world getting swallowed by Julian's. She called Julian immediately. He answered sounding exhausted. "I saw the photos," he said before she could speak. I'm so sorry. I'm having my security team handle it, trying to get the post taken down, issuing statements. There are reporters at my apartment building. What? No. That's completely out of line. She heard him moving, probably pacing. I'm calling my lawyer right now. We'll issue a cease and desist, threaten lawsuits for harassment, whatever it takes. Julian, stop. I'm not going to let them harass you and Rochelle. This is my fault for not being more careful. It's nobody's fault. But throwing lawyers and money at it might make it worse. Media loves a story where the rich guy tries to silence reporters. It becomes a bigger story. So what do? Tamara thought for a moment. We tell the truth. Simple, direct, boring truth. We're friends. We care about each other. That's it. No drama, no secrets, nothing interesting to speculate about. Will that work? Maybe. Or maybe people will keep making up stories anyway. But at least we'll have been honest. They crafted a simple statement together. Julian posted it on the right industry's social media accounts. Tamara Brooks is a friend who helped me during a difficult time. I'm grateful for her kindness and proud to know her. We ask that the media respect her privacy and that of her family. There is no scandal here, just two people navigating an unexpected friendship with honesty and care. Within minutes, the statement was everywhere. Reactions were mixed. Some people praised Julian for being direct. Others accused him of trying to hide a relationship. Conspiracy theorists spun elaborate tales about secret romances and family disapproval. But slowly the intensity started to die down. New stories emerged. A celebrity breakup, a political scandal, something else for the internet to obsess over. By afternoon, the reporters had left Tamara's building. Tamara went to work that evening, bracing herself for questions and stares. Mr. Peterson called her into his office as soon as she arrived. I want to be clear, he said, his expression kind. Your personal life is your business. But if this media attention continues, it could disrupt the hospital's operations. I need to know this is going to settle down. It will. Julian and I made a statement. The story's already losing steam. Good. Because you're an excellent nurse, and I'd hate to see your career impacted by circumstance beyond your control. It was a warning wrapped in support. Tamara heard it clearly. Keep your personal drama away from work, or there will be consequences. Her shift was busy enough that she didn't have time to dwell on the situation. But during her break, she checked her phone and found a text from an unknown number. This is Vanessa Montgomery. I'd like to talk to you if you're willing. No pressure. I just think we should have a conversation, woman to woman. Tamara stared at the message for a long minute. Vanessa Montgomery. The woman Julian had almost married. The woman whose wedding he'd run from. What could she possibly want to talk about? She showed the message to Jamie, who was on break with her. Don't do it, Jamie advised immediately. It's a trap. She probably wants to yell at you or something. The message doesn't sound angry. That's what makes it suspicious. But Tamara's curiosity was piqued. She replied, okay. When and where? The response came quickly. Tomorrow afternoon? There's a cafe on 5th and Madison. I'll book a private room. Just us. Tamara agreed before she could second-guess herself. She told Julian about the meeting that night when he called to check on her. Are you sure that's a good idea? He asked, sounding concerned. Probably not. But I'm curious what she wants to say. Vanessa's not a bad person. But she's also used to getting what she wants, and I embarrassed her publicly. She might be looking for someone to blame. I can handle it. I know you can. But I don't want you to have to. Want me to come with you? No. If this is woman to woman, it needs to be just us. The next afternoon, Tamara arrived at the upscale cafe 5 minutes early. A staff member led her to a private room in the back, where Vanessa Montgomery was already waiting. Vanessa was exactly what Tamara had expected from seeing her photos. Stunningly beautiful, impeccably dressed in designer clothes, perfectly groomed. But her eyes were sad, and when she stood to greet Tamara, her smile was more tired than hostile. Thank you for coming, Vanessa said, extending her hand. I wasn't sure you would. I was curious. Tamara shook her hand. And confused about what you want to talk about. May I be brutally honest? Please. Vanessa gestured for Tamara to sit, and they settled into comfortable chairs with coffee the staff had already prepared. When Julian ran from our wedding, I was humiliated. Angry. I wanted someone to blame. When I heard about you, about how you'd helped him, I assumed you were the reason. The other woman. The secret love affair. I'm not. We're just friends. I know that now. I had you investigated too, I'm ashamed to admit. Everyone in our world has the same reflex. When something goes wrong, throw money at information. Vanessa paused, adding sugar to her coffee. But what I learned was that you're just a good person who helped someone in crisis. Nothing scandalous. Nothing interesting. Just kindness. So why did you want to meet me? To apologize. And to thank you. Tamara blinked. Thank me for what? For helping Julian find the courage to do what I couldn't. Walk away from a situation that was wrong for both of us. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. I didn't love him. He didn't love me. Our families wanted the merger. We were both just going along with it because that's what was expected. But I was too afraid to say no. Julian was brave enough for both of us. He didn't do it to be brave. He did it because he was terrified of living a lie. That's what makes it brave. Vanessa wiped her eyes carefully, mindful of her makeup. Since the wedding disaster, my family's been furious. They demanded I issue statements, play the victim, make Julian look like the villain. But I couldn't. Because he set me free too. They talked for over an hour. Vanessa shared stories about the pressure she'd faced, the expectations placed on her since childhood. How every choice had been made for her, every path predetermined. She'd never been allowed to figure out what she actually wanted from life. I'm starting to now, Vanessa said. Figure it out, I mean. I started therapy. Told my parents I'm taking a year off from family business obligations. I might travel. I might go back to school. I might do nothing at all. The point is, I get to choose. That's wonderful, Tamara said, genuinely happy for her. It's terrifying. But it's mine. Vanessa looked at Tamara with something like envy. You've always had that, haven't you? Choice. Agency. The freedom to make your own decisions. I've had different kinds of freedom and different kinds of constraints. Money buys options, but it also creates its own prison. Very diplomatic. Vanessa smiled. But I see what you mean. We all have our struggles. Mine just come with better shoes. They laughed at that, the tension between them finally breaking completely. When they left the cafe, Vanessa hugged Tamara. Be good to him, she said. Julian, I mean. He deserves someone who sees him for who he is, not what he represents. We're just friends, Tamara repeated, but even she didn't fully believe it anymore. Sure you are. Vanessa's smile was knowing. Keep telling yourself that. Tamara reported back to Julian that evening, sitting on her apartment balcony with a cup of tea. The conversation with Vanessa had left her feeling strange, like she'd been given permission for something she hadn't realized she needed permission for. She apologized to you? Julian sounded amazed. And thank you? Both. She's starting to build her own life, make her own choices. She seemed lighter than I expected. Happier. Good. That's good. I worried about her, how the public humiliation would affect her. She's stronger than people probably give her credit for. They talked until Rochelle came home, then said goodbye so Tamara could make dinner. But as she cooked pasta and listened to her sister talk about her day, Tamara kept thinking about what Vanessa had said, be good to him. The assumption that they were more than friends. The gentle warning to treat Julian's heart carefully. Did everyone see something between them that they were still pretending didn't exist? The following week brought new challenges. Julian's foundation was officially launching in 3 months, and the work was consuming. He'd assembled a small team, Rochelle as youth consultant, 3 experienced nonprofit professionals and Patricia Anderson as an advisor. They met twice a week at the right building, and Tamara occasionally joined them when her schedule allowed. Catherine, recovered from her heart attack but ordered to take it easy, started attending meetings as well. True to her word, she was welcoming to Tamara now. Not warm exactly but respectful. She asked Tamara's opinion on community needs, listened when she spoke about healthcare access, treated her like a valued voice rather than an unwelcome intruder. Mom's really trying, Julian observed after one meeting. They'd stayed late to finalize some documents, and now they were alone in the conference room overlooking the city. She is. I appreciate it. She told me something the other day. Julian looked out the window, city lights twinkling below. She said watching me with you reminds her of how she was with my father at the beginning. When they were just 2 people falling in love, before the business and society and expectations complicated everything. Tamara's heart skipped. Julian. I know. We're just friends. But Mom sees what everyone else sees. What I've been trying not to see because I didn't want to pressure you or complicate things. He turned to face her. I'm falling for you, Tamara. Maybe I already have. And I need to be honest about that even if you don't feel the same way. I didn't say I don't feel the same way. You didn't say you do either. Tamara stood, walking to the window to stand beside him. The city spread out below them, millions of lives being lived, millions of stories unfolding. Somewhere down there, people were falling in love, taking risks, choosing hope over fear. "I'm scared," she admitted, "of what this could become, of how complicated it could get. Of losing myself in your world or dragging you down into mine. Of hurting Rochelle if this doesn't work out. Of disappointing your family again. Of public attention and media scrutiny and everyone having opinions about our lives. Those are all reasonable fears. But I'm also scared of not trying. Of walking away from something real because I'm too afraid to take the risk. Of looking back in 5 years and wondering what might have been if I'd been braver." Julian reached for her hand, the same way he had in the hospital parking lot. "So what do? We stop pretending we're just friends. We acknowledge what's happening between us. And we see where it leads, slowly and carefully but truthfully. I can work with that." He leaned down and Tamara rose on her toes and they kissed for the first time. Soft and careful, a question being asked and answered. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "That was worth all the complications," Julian whispered. "Let's hope we still think so in a few months." They left the right building together, hand in hand, no longer hiding. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tamara knew that. Her coworkers would talk. Catherine might have second thoughts. The media might start speculating again. Rochelle would want details. Nothing about this would be simple. But as they walked through the city streets, just two people choosing to be honest about their feelings, simplicity felt overrated anyway. Sometimes the best things in life were complicated, messy, uncertain. Sometimes taking the risk was what made it worthwhile. And as Julian hailed a cab to take her home, kissing her one more time before she climbed inside, Tamara felt something she hadn't felt in years, pure, uncomplicated hope. The rest would be details. The rest they'd figure out together. The car broke down on a Thursday afternoon, 3 weeks after their first kiss. Julian and Tamara had been driving to visit Patricia at the bookstore, planning to discuss foundation outreach strategies. One moment everything was fine. The next, the engine made a horrible grinding sound and the car coasted to a stop on the shoulder of a quiet country road. "Well," Julian said, staring at the dashboard. "This is unfortunate." Tamara tried not to laugh. "You've never dealt with car trouble, have you?" "I've always had drivers. Or Harrison handled it. Or there was a service I called." He looked genuinely bewildered. "What do? We call a tow truck and wait. Welcome to real-life problems." They ended up at Betty's Auto Repair, a small shop in a town called Millbrook. Betty herself came out to look at the car, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and grease-stained overalls. She listened to the engine, poked around under the hood, then delivered her verdict. "Timing belt. Maybe some other damage too. I'll need to keep it overnight. Maybe 2 nights. We're 3 hours from home," Tamara said. "Is there a rental car place nearby?" "Closed on Thursdays. Opens tomorrow morning." Betty wiped her hands on a rag. "There's a decent motel up the road. Clean sheets, hot water, TV works most of the time. You could do worse." So they found themselves checking into the Millbrook Motor Lodge, a place that had probably been nice in 1975 and was now just clean and functional. The clerk, a young man named Danny, did a double take when he saw Julian. "You're that guy," he said. "The one who ran from his wedding." "That's me." Julian sighed. "Though I'd prefer to be known for something else." "Cool. We don't get many famous people here." Danny handed them a key. "Room 12. It's got a great view of the parking lot." The room was exactly what they'd expected. 2 double beds, floral bedspreads from decades past, a TV bolted to the wall, a bathroom with questionable water pressure. It was the opposite of luxury. "This is where normal people stay when their car breaks down?" Julian asked, looking around with fascination. "This is actually pretty nice for a roadside motel. Clean towels, no obvious stains. I've stayed worse places." They walked to a diner down the road for dinner. The waitress, a woman named Ruth who'd probably been working there since the place opened, treated them like everyone else, calling them Han, refilling coffee without being asked, recommending the meatloaf. "You like it here," Tamara observed as Julian enthusiastically ate his meatloaf. "I love it. Nobody knows who I am." "Well, Danny recognized me, but he doesn't care. We're just 2 people having dinner. No performance required." After dinner they walked through the small town. Millbrook had one main street with a handful of shops. A hardware store, a bakery, a post office, a library. Everything was quiet and simple. A few people said hello as they passed. One older couple smiled and said, "Nice evening for a walk." Back at the motel, they sat on the curb outside their room, watching the sun set over the parking lot. It wasn't romantic by traditional standards. But something about the ordinariness of it felt perfect. "Can I tell you something?" Julian asked. "Something I haven't told anyone else?" "Of course. When my father died, I felt relieved." He said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. "I was sad, obviously. I loved him. But I also felt this horrible, guilty sense of relief that the person who'd been planning my entire life was gone. And I've hated myself for that feeling ever since." Tamara took his hand. "That's not terrible. That's human. It feels terrible. You can love someone and still feel relieved when certain pressures lift. Grief is complicated. It's not just sadness. It's guilt and anger and confusion and relief all mixed together." "Did you feel that when your parents died?" Tamara thought carefully. "My father died instantly in the car accident. My mother lived for 3 days in the ICU. I felt so many things. Devastation, panic about Rochelle, anger at the drunk driver, terror about the future. But yes, there was also relief. Relief that my mother's suffering was over. Relief that the waiting and hoping were finished. And guilt about that relief for months afterward." "How did you deal with the guilt?" "I realized guilt means you care. It means you take responsibility seriously, that you think about how your feelings affect others. That's not a bad quality. It's just painful sometimes." They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. A family pulled up to the motel, parents and 3 kids tumbling out of a minivan, all talking over each other. The normalcy of it was beautiful. "I want this," Julian said quietly. "Not the broken car or the cheap motel specifically. But this feeling. Being somewhere where I'm just Julian. Where my last name doesn't precede me, where expectations don't weigh on every choice. You can have that. You're building it with the foundation. I want it with you too. Not just as something I'm building, but as how we exist together. No performance. No calculation. Just honest." Tamara leaned her head on his shoulder. "We're already doing that." They talked until late, sitting on that motel curb like teenagers. Julian opened up about fears he'd never voiced, that he'd never be more than his family name, that the foundation would fail and prove his mother right about him wasting his potential, that he'd always feel like he was playing catch-up with normal life skills everyone else learned naturally. Tamara shared her own fears, that she'd lose herself in Julian's world, that Rochelle would resent the changes in their lives, that the media attention would never fully stop, that she was fooling herself thinking a relationship between them could really work long-term. "What if we're both wrong about all of it?" Julian suggested. "What if we're borrowing trouble, worrying about things that might never happen? Then we've wasted a lot of energy on nothing." "Exactly. So maybe we just focus on what's real right now. This moment. This feeling. This choice to be together despite everything telling us it's complicated. That sounds healthy and mature. Which means we'll probably panic again next week." Julian laughed. "Probably. But we'll deal with next week. They eventually went inside, lying on their separate beds, talking across the gap between them. About books they loved and movies they'd seen and places they wanted to visit. About childhood dreams and current goals and what they hoped their lives would look like in 10 years. "I want to still be doing nursing," Tamara said. "But maybe teaching too. Helping train new nurses, passing on what I've learned." "That's perfect for you. You're a natural teacher. What about you? Where do you see yourself?" "Honestly, I see myself running the foundation. Making real change happen. Using my privilege and connections for something that matters. And I see myself with you if you'll still have me in 10 years. Pretty sure of yourself. Not sure at all. Just hopeful." They fell asleep eventually, exhausted by the day and the emotions. When Tamara woke in the early morning, dawn light filtering through thin curtains, Julian was sitting up in his bed watching her. "That's creepy," she mumbled, half asleep. "Sorry? I've just been thinking." "About what?" "About how I used to think happiness required everything being perfect. The right job, the right partner, the right life circumstances all aligning. But lying here in this mediocre motel room with you asleep across from me, I realized I was wrong. Happiness is choosing someone and having them choose you back. Everything else is just details." Tamara sat up, fully awake now. "That's very romantic for someone who's never been in real love before." "Who says I haven't been?" "Julian, right, are you telling me you're in love with me?" He met her eyes. "I'm telling you I'm falling. Fast. And I've stopped fighting it." She should have felt scared. This was moving fast, maybe too fast. They'd only known each other 2 months. Only been actually dating for 3 weeks. But looking at him in the morning light, vulnerable and honest, and here she felt something click into place. I'm falling too, she admitted. Which is terrifying. We can be terrified together. Betty called around noon. The car needed more work than she'd thought, but she could have it ready by late afternoon. They spent the day exploring Millbrook, which took all of 2 hours. They visited the library, where the librarian gave them both recommendations without recognizing Julian. They bought fresh bread from the bakery. They sat in the small town park and watched kids play. Is this boring? Tamara asked. After a life of constant stimulation and excitement? This is the opposite of boring. This is peaceful. There's a difference. On the drive back that evening, the car running smoothly thanks to Betty's expertise, they were quiet for a long time. Processing the trip, the conversations, the confessions made in a motel room that smelled faintly of cleaning solution. Thank you, Julian said as they neared the city. For what? For being patient with me while I figure out how to be a real person. For not judging me for the things I don't know how to do. For showing me what genuine connection looks like. You give me too much credit. I give you exactly the right amount of credit. You changed my life, Tamara. You keep changing it every day. When they reached the city, Julian didn't take her straight home. Instead, he drove to a quiet overlook where they could see the whole skyline lit up against the night sky. I need to ask you something, he said. And I need you to answer honestly, even if you think it'll hurt my feelings. Okay. Do you think this can really work? Long term, I mean. You and me with all the complications and differences and challenges. Do you believe it's possible? Tamara looked at the city lights, thinking about her answer. A month ago she would have said no immediately. Different worlds didn't mix. Billionaire heirs and working-class nurses didn't have lasting relationships. The obstacles were too many, the differences too vast. But now, after weeks of getting to know Julian, after seeing him in his weakest moments and his strongest, after watching him choose authenticity over comfort again and again, she found her answer had changed. I think anything's possible if both people are committed to making it work, she said. And I think we're both stubborn enough to push through complications. So yes, I think this can work. If we both want it to. I want it to. So do I. They kissed there, overlooking the city, two people choosing each other despite every logical reason not to. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. Take me home, Tamara said. Rochelle's going to want to hear about the great car breakdown adventure. Julian drove her to her apartment, walking her to the door like he did every time now. Rochelle opened it before Tamara could get her key out. Finally. I've been worried. Why didn't you text me you'd be late? Car broke down. We got stuck in a small town overnight. It was actually kind of great. Rochelle looked between them, seeing something in their faces. Something happened. Something good. We'll talk later, Tamara promised. After Julian left, Rochelle cornered her sister in the kitchen. Spill. Everything. So Tamara told her. About the car breaking down, the motel, the conversations. About Julian admitting he was falling in love. About her own confession that she was falling too. So you guys are official now? Rochelle asked. I guess we are. Good. Because you've been glowing for weeks and it's been weird watching you pretend you were just friends. Was it that obvious? Tam, it was obvious from the first time you mentioned him. You never just help people and then keep them in your life this intensely unless you're feeling something more. Later that night, Tamara lay in bed replaying the last 48 hours. The car breaking down had been inconvenient but had given them something valuable. Time away from their normal lives, space to be honest without pressure or audience. Sometimes the best moments came from unexpected circumstances. Her phone buzzed with a text from Julian. Home safe. Already missing you. Same time tomorrow? She replied, can't. Work tomorrow. Day after? Day after. I'll count the minutes. Dramatic much? Only about you. She fell asleep smiling, feeling hopeful in a way she hadn't felt since before her parents died. Like maybe the future could be good again. Like maybe taking this risk, choosing this complicated, imperfect, beautiful thing with Julian, was exactly the right choice. The rest would be details. And they'd figure out the details together, one day at a time, with honesty and trust and hope leading the way. Patricia's lake house was even more peaceful in late autumn than Julian had described. Bare trees reflected in still water, the air crisp and clean, everything quiet except for birds and the occasional splash of a fish jumping. Tamara stood on the dock, wrapped in a green cardigan, breathing in the serenity. Your friend has good taste, she called back to where Julian was setting up the patio furniture. Pat always knew how to find beauty in simplicity. It's her superpower. Patricia Anderson emerged from the house carrying a tray of lemonade despite the cool weather. If you're going to discuss me, at least say nice things, she teased. They'd driven up Friday afternoon, planning to spend the weekend working on foundation strategy. Patricia had offered her lake house as a retreat space, somewhere they could focus without city distractions. Catherine had approved, surprisingly, saying a weekend away might help Julian get perspective before the foundation's official launch in 6 weeks. Tamara had been nervous about the trip. A weekend away with Julian felt significant, a step toward something more serious. But Rochelle had practically pushed her out the door. Go. Have fun. Don't overthink everything for once in your life. Now, settling into chairs on Patricia's patio with lemonade and laptops, Tamara felt herself relaxing. This was good. The three of them worked well together. Julian with his business vision, Patricia with her legal expertise, Tamara with her ground-level understanding of community needs. Okay, Patricia started. 6 weeks until launch. Let's talk about what's still missing. They spent hours reviewing plans. The foundation would focus on 3 areas: healthcare access, education support, and small business development. Each area had dedicated staff, clear goals, measurable outcomes. On paper, everything looked perfect. But something's bothering you, Patricia said to Julian. I can tell. What is it? Julian set down his laptop. I'm worried we're just becoming another rich person's charity. All structure and strategy but no soul. We'll write checks and feel good about ourselves while staying safely distant from actual problems. That's why you have people like me involved, Tamara pointed out. To keep you connected to reality. I know. But I'm one person making decisions about communities I don't really understand. How is that better than the system I criticized? Patricia leaned back in her chair, thinking. You're asking the right question. Most people in your position never get there. They just assume their money and education make them qualified to solve problems they've never experienced. So what's the answer? You give away power. Patricia said it simply. You set up the foundation so that community members have real decision-making authority. Not just advisory roles, but actual power over how money gets spent and programs get designed. My board will hate that. They'll say we're being irresponsible with family money. Probably. But if you're serious about this being different, about it being real, you have to be willing to trust people. Even when it's uncomfortable. They talked through what that might look like. Community boards with budget authority. Residents choosing which projects to fund. Bottom-up design instead of top-down charity. It would be messier, harder to measure, more difficult to defend to skeptical board members. But it would be authentic, Julian said, looking at Tamara. Right? It would be revolutionary. Most foundations never give up that control. Then we'll be the ones who do. That evening, Patricia made dinner while Julian and Tamara walked around the lake. The sun was setting, painting the water gold and pink. Everything felt suspended in that perfect moment between day and night. You're really going to do it? Tamara said. Give away control to community members. I am. It's terrifying and probably stupid from a business perspective. But it's right. Your family's going to fight you. Let them. Julian stopped walking, turning to face her. I've spent my whole life making choices based on what other people wanted. The wedding, the career path, the social circles. All of it dictated by family expectations. The foundation is mine. I'm doing it right, even if right is messy and uncomfortable. I'm proud of you. Really proud. I couldn't do this without you. You've shown me what authentic service looks like, what it means to actually care about people instead of just performing care. They kissed there by the lake, the sunset painting everything in warm colors. When they pulled apart, Tamara rested her head against Julian's chest, listening to his heartbeat, feeling grateful and scared in equal measure. What are we doing? She whispered. Building something real. Together. That night, they sat around Patricia's fireplace, drinking wine and talking about everything except the foundation. Patricia told stories about her corporate law days, the moment she'd realized money wasn't worth hating her life. Julian shared memories of his father, the good and the complicated. Tamara talked about her parents, about the grief that never fully left but did get more manageable with time. I think that's what life is, Patricia mused. Learning to carry our complicated feelings without letting them crush us. Joy and grief, hope and fear, all mixed together. The people who try to feel only the good stuff end up feeling nothing at all. That's dark, Julian observed. That's honest. And honesty is what we're going for, right? The next morning, Tamara woke early and went for a run around the lake. The air was cold enough that her breath came out in clouds, but the exercise felt good. She'd been so busy with work and Julian and helping with the foundation that she'd neglected her own routines. When she got back, Patricia was making breakfast and Julian was on the phone on the porch, his voice tense. Tamara caught the end of the conversation. I don't care if the board has concerns. This is my foundation and my choice. Pause. No, Mother, I'm not being reckless. I'm being intentional about doing things differently. Another pause. I'll explain everything when I get back. But my decision stands. He hung up, leaning heavily on the porch railing. Tamara joined him, handing him coffee. Catherine found out about the community power-sharing plan? She guessed. Harrison told her. He thought she'd be supportive. He was wrong. Julian took the coffee gratefully. She's calling an emergency board meeting for Monday. Wants to discuss concerns about foundation structure. Can she overrule you? Technically no. The foundation is mine. But she can make things very difficult. And she has allies on the board who trust her judgment over mine. What are you going to do? Fight for it. Present the plan, explain the reasoning, stand my ground. What else can I do? Patricia joined them on the porch. You could compromise. Keep some traditional structure while adding community voice. Give yourself time to prove the concept works before going all in. That's not doing it right. That's doing it safe. Safe isn't always wrong, Julian. Sometimes strategic patience is smarter than principled stubbornness. Julian looked between them, conflict clear on his face. I don't want to compromise. Not on this. Then don't, Tamara said quietly. But go into that meeting prepared for serious pushback. Know your data, have examples of other foundations that have done similar things, be ready to defend every choice. Your passion won't be enough. You'll need evidence. They spent the rest of the weekend preparing. Patricia found case studies of community-led foundations. Tamara contributed research on healthcare outcomes when communities controlled their own programs. Julian synthesized everything into a presentation that was part data, part vision, part personal commitment. By Sunday evening he was ready. Thank you, he said to both of them as they packed up to leave, for helping me build something worth fighting for. The drive back to the city was quiet. Julian was nervous about the Monday meeting. Tamara was worried about what would happen if Catherine won, if Julian had to choose between his vision and his family's support. Whatever happens, she said as they neared her apartment, I'm proud of you for trying. That's a very preparing for failure thing to say. I'm preparing for reality. Your family has power and money and years of doing things their way. You have passion and principle. Those don't always win. They should. Yes, they should. Monday morning came too fast. Julian dressed in his most serious suit, the armor of business meetings. He looked every inch the right air, polished, professional, powerful. But Tamara could see the nervousness underneath. Text me when it's over? She asked as he was leaving. I will. Wish me luck. You don't need luck. You need courage. Which you already have. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. Tamara was working a day shift so she couldn't be there. But her phone stayed in her pocket all morning waiting for updates. The text came at noon, it's done. Call you after work? That was all. No details, no indication of how it went. Tamara spent the rest of her shift distracted, wondering if it's done meant victory or defeat. Julian finally called at 7 p.m., just as Tamara was getting home. Tell me everything, she said, skipping greetings. It was brutal. Mom had the whole board primed against the plan. They called it well-intentioned but naive. Said I was being emotional rather than strategic. Questioned whether I was really ready for this kind of responsibility. Julian, I'm sorry. Wait. I'm not finished. His voice changed, became stronger. I presented anyway. Showed them the research, the case studies, the evidence that community-led programs work better than top-down charity. I told them about you, about Rochelle, about real people whose lives could be changed by this approach. And then I told them that if the board wouldn't support the foundation being done right, I'd resign and start over independently. You what? I gave them an ultimatum. Either we do this my way with real community power or I walk away entirely. No right name, no family money. I'll start from scratch if I have to. Tamara's heart was pounding. What did they say? They voted. 7-5. In favor of the community-led model. We won, Tamara. Barely, but we won. Julian. That's incredible. Mom voted against it. Harrison voted for it. It was the first time they've been on opposite sides of a family decision. He sounded exhausted but triumphant. I'm still processing what that means for family dynamics. But right now, I'm just celebrating that the foundation gets to be what I wanted it to be. What you wanted and what communities need. There's a difference. You're right. What communities need and what I get to help provide. Better? Much better. They talked for an hour, Julian sharing every detail of the meeting. Catherine's disappointment. Harrison's support. The board members who'd been swayed by the evidence. The ones who'd voted against out of principle, not data. Where does this leave you and your mother? Tamara asked. Strained. She thinks I'm making a mistake. I think she's holding too tight to the old ways of doing things. We're both probably a little right. He paused. But I'm not backing down. Not on this. The foundation launches in 4 weeks with community boards having real power. That's final. Then I'm incredibly proud of you. And a little terrified about what this means for your family relationships. Me too. But some things are worth the strain. This is one of them. After they hung up, Tamara sat with her phone, processing everything. Julian had chosen his values over family approval. Had stood his ground even when it would have been easier to compromise. Had risked real consequences to do things right. That kind of courage was rare. It made her love him more and worry more in equal measure. Because standing up to family once was hard. Doing it consistently, maintaining boundaries while preserving relationships, would be the real test. But for tonight they could celebrate the victory. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But they'd face those together with honesty and hope leading the way. 4 weeks passed in a blur of activity. The foundation launch was imminent, and Julian was working 12-hour days. Tamara helped when she could, squeezing in meetings between shifts, offering perspective on community outreach plans, supporting Julian when the pressure got overwhelming. Catherine remained distant but civil. She'd accepted the board's decision but hadn't forgiven Julian for pushing so hard. Family dinners were tense, conversations careful. Harrison mediated, trying to keep peace between his mother and brother. Give her time, Harrison kept saying. She's adapting. It's just hard for her. The night before the launch, Julian couldn't sleep. He called Tamara at 2 a.m., apologetic but desperate for connection. I'm sorry for waking you, he said. I just needed to hear your voice. Talk to me. What's going on in your head? What if I've made a huge mistake? What if giving communities this much power backfires? What if people make bad decisions with the funding? What if I've just created an expensive disaster that proves Mom right? Julian breathed. You're catastrophizing. Am I? Or am I being realistic about the risks? Tamara sat up in bed, fully awake now. Listen to me. Yes, there will be mistakes. Yes, some decisions won't work out perfectly. But that's true of any approach. At least this way, communities are learning and growing and taking ownership. That's worth more than perfect efficiency. You really believe that? I do. And more importantly, you believed it enough to fight your whole board for it. Don't lose faith now, right before the launch. They talked until dawn, Tamara calming Julian's fears, Julian processing his anxieties out loud. By the time the sun rose, he sounded steadier. Thank you, again, for being my anchor when everything feels chaotic. That's what people who love each other do. Pause. You love me? Tamara realized what she'd said. They'd talked about falling, but neither had used the actual word love yet. Yes, I do. Is that okay? It's more than okay. 'Cause I love you too. Have for weeks probably. Just didn't want to say it first and scare you off. I don't scare that easily. I'm learning that. The foundation launch was held at a community center in the neighborhood where Tamara lived. Not a fancy hotel ballroom or corporate venue, but a local space where the people the foundation aimed to serve could actually attend. It was Julian's idea, and Catherine had hated it. You're sending a message that right money isn't good enough for traditional venues, she'd argued. I'm sending a message that we're here to serve communities, not impress donors, Julian had countered. The community center was packed. Local residents, foundation staff, board members, press. Catherine arrived in a blue designer suit, her expression carefully neutral. Harrison and his wife Olivia came too, looking proud. Vanessa Montgomery showed up unexpectedly, slipping in quietly and taking a seat in the back. Tamara stood with Rochelle near the front, both of them dressed up. Rochelle wore a maroon dress Tamara had bought for the occasion, looking mature and professional. Tamara wore green, Julian's favorite color, on her. You nervous? Rochelle whispered. Terrified. But not for me. For him. Julian took the stage, looking confident despite the nerves Tamara knew he was feeling. He spoke clearly, passionately, about why the foundation existed. Not to be another rich person's tax write-off, but to genuinely partner with communities in creating change. I've had every advantage in life, he said. Good education, family connections, financial security. I could have used those advantages to make myself richer. Instead, I want to use them to make communities stronger. But not by assuming I know what communities need. By listening, by partnering, by sharing power with the people who actually live these challenges every day. He introduced the community board members, residents from different neighborhoods who would have real authority over funding decisions. They each spoke briefly about their hopes for the foundation, their commitment to serving their neighbors. Then Julian did something unexpected. He called Tamara to the stage. "I need to thank someone publicly," he said. Tamara Brooks is a nurse who works down the street from here. A few months ago, on a rainy night, she helped a desperate stranger without expecting anything in return. That stranger was me, running from a life that didn't fit, terrified of making wrong choices. The room was completely silent. Tamara showed me what authentic service looks like. What it means to help people because it's right, not because it benefits you. She inspired this foundation, these values, this commitment to doing things differently. So Tamara, would you please stand up here with me? Tamara felt every eye in the room turn to her. She glanced at Rochelle, who nodded encouragement. Then she walked to the stage, heart pounding, and stood beside Julian. "Thank you," Julian said to her, voice soft but amplified by the microphone. "For changing my life. For believing in this vision. For reminding me what really matters." He kissed her then in front of everyone. His family, the board, the press, the community. A declaration that whatever they had wasn't secret or shameful, but real and worth celebrating. When they pulled apart, the room erupted in applause. Tamara's face was hot, embarrassed and thrilled at once. She caught Catherine's expression, not happy but not hostile either. Something like resigned acceptance. The rest of the launch went perfectly. Community members asked tough questions, which Julian answered thoughtfully. Press coverage was positive. Board members mingled with residents, some looking uncomfortable, others genuinely engaged. Vanessa approached Tamara during the reception. "That was quite a public declaration," she said with a smile. "I had no idea he was going to do that." "Of course not. That's what makes it romantic." Vanessa glanced toward where Julian was talking with community leaders. "He's different now. Lighter. That's because of you. He's different because he chose to be." "True. But you made him believe the choice was possible." Vanessa squeezed Tamara's hand. "Be good to each other. You both deserve happiness." After the official launch ended, there was a smaller dinner for family and close friends. Catherine presided over the meal with formal courtesy, treating Tamara with cool politeness. It wasn't warmth, but it wasn't hostility either. Progress, Tamara supposed. Harrison pulled Julian aside during dessert. Tamara saw them talking intently by the windows, Harrison's hand on Julian's shoulder. When Julian returned to the table, he looked lighter. "What did Harrison say?" Tamara asked later, when they finally had a moment alone on the community center's back patio. "He told me Dad would have been proud. That I'd found my own path instead of just following his. That's the first time anyone in the family has said something like that." "How do you feel?" "Like maybe I'm finally becoming the person I was supposed to be all along." They stood together watching the city lights, the noise of the dinner party fading behind them. Tamara leaned against Julian, feeling his arm wrap around her. "We did it," she said. "You launched the foundation. We did it. This is as much yours as mine." "It's not. But thank you for saying that. I mean it. Without you, none of this happens. I'd still be trapped in a life that wasn't mine, marrying someone I didn't love, performing success while feeling empty inside. You give me too much credit. I give you exactly the right amount." He turned to face her, taking both her hands. "Tamara, I know it's fast. I know we've only been together a few months. But I need you to know I'm serious about this. About us. About building a life together if you want that." "Is this a proposal?" "Not yet. But it's a promise. That when I do propose, and I will, it'll be because I can't imagine my future without you in it." Tamara's eyes filled with tears. "That's the most beautiful almost proposal I've ever heard. Just wait for the actual one. It'll be even better." They kissed there on the patio, the sounds of celebration muted behind them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Running the foundation, managing family dynamics, balancing their different worlds. But tonight was for celebrating victory, for acknowledging how far they'd both come. Inside, Catherine watched them through the window. Harrison joined her. "You're going to have to accept her eventually," he said quietly. "Julian's serious about this relationship." "I know. I can see that." Catherine sipped her wine. "She's not what I would have chosen for him. She's exactly what he needed, though. Someone real. Someone who sees him as a person, not as the right heir." I suppose you're right. Catherine set down her glass. Your father would have liked her. He always appreciated people who earned their way, who worked hard for what they had. Dad would have loved her. And been proud of Jules for finding someone so genuine. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. I need to try harder. To welcome her properly, make her feel part of the family. Not because I've changed my mind about appropriate matches, but because Julian has chosen her. And I need to respect his choices, even when they're not mine. That's all Jules wants. Your respect and acceptance. Then I'll give it. Starting now. When Julian and Tamara came back inside, Catherine approached them. Tamara, do you have plans tomorrow evening? Just work until 6. Good. Come to dinner. 7 o'clock. Just family. I'd like to get to know you properly. Tamara glanced at Julian, who looked as surprised as she felt. I'd like that. Thank you. After Catherine walked away, Julian whispered, Did that just happen? Did my mother just invite you to family dinner? I think she did. This is huge. She never extends dinner invitations lightly. Should I be terrified? Probably. But also hopeful. If Mom's trying, she's really trying. She doesn't do things halfway. They left the launch party late, tired but happy. Julian drove Tamara and Rochelle home, walking them both to the door. Today was perfect, he told Tamara. Thank you for standing up there with me, for being part of this. Thank you for including me. For loving me enough to be public about it. I'd shout it from every rooftop if I thought it would help. After he left, Rochelle turned to her sister with knowing eyes. He's going to propose. You know that, right? Maybe. Eventually. Not eventually. So, I saw how he looked at you today. That's a man planning a future. Tamara got ready for bed, her mind racing. The foundation launched. Catherine reaching out. Julian's promise of a proposal. Everything was moving fast, changing rapidly. It would be easy to feel overwhelmed. But instead she felt hopeful. Because all these changes were good ones. Scary, yes, but good. And she had Julian beside her, helping navigate it all. Her phone buzzed with a text. Thank you for today. For every day. I love you. She replied, I love you too. See you tomorrow for the scary family dinner. We'll survive it together. We always do. And that, Tamara thought, was the real gift. Not the money or the foundation or the public declarations. Just knowing that whatever came next, they'd face it together. Honestly. Bravely. With love leading the way. 3 months after the foundation launch, everything had settled into a new rhythm. The community boards were functioning well, making smart decisions about funding and programs. Julian's fears about giving away power had been unfounded. If anything, the community-led approach was working better than traditional top-down charity. Tamara had become a regular presence at right family events. Catherine still wasn't warm exactly, but she was welcoming. She asked about Tamara's work, included her in family discussions, treated her like someone who mattered to Julian and therefore mattered to the family. You're growing on her, Harrison observed at one family brunch. Mom actually smiled when you were telling that story about the patient who proposed to his nurse. Progress, Tamara agreed. More than progress. Acceptance. Your family now, whether she's ready to admit it or not. The foundation's opening gala was scheduled for a Saturday in March. Unlike the community center launch, this was a fundraiser aimed at wealthy donors. A necessary evil, Julian called it. They needed funding beyond the family money, and that meant courting rich people at fancy events. You'll be there, right? Julian asked Tamara a week before the gala. They were having dinner at a small restaurant near her apartment, one of their regular date spots. Do I have to? You know I hate those things. Please. I'll be miserable without you. Besides, I want to show you off. I'm not a trophy. No, you're the person I love and am incredibly proud of. There's a difference. Tamara sighed. Fine. But I'm wearing whatever I want, not some designer thing your mother picks out. Deal. Though Mom will probably offer anyway. She did. Catherine called Tamara 2 days later with the name of a personal shopper who could help her find something appropriate for the gala. Tamara politely declined, saying she already had something in mind. The truth was she'd been saving for months. There was a red dress she'd seen in a boutique window, elegant but not too formal. With her foundation consulting money, she could finally afford it. When Julian picked her up the night of the gala, his eyes went wide. You look stunning. You're not so bad yourself. He wore a perfectly tailored tux, looking every inch the billionaire heir. But he was holding a bouquet of daisies, her favorite flower, instead of the roses that would have been more formal. Thought you could use these, he said, handing them over. For courage. The gala was at a high-end hotel downtown, the ballroom decorated in silver and blue. Waiters circulated with champagne and appetizers. A string quartet played in one corner. Everything was elegant, expensive, and slightly intimidating. Tamara held Julian's arm, letting him guide her through introductions. Wealthy donors, board members, politicians. Everyone wanted to talk to Julian, to congratulate him on the foundation's early success, to discuss potential partnerships. She was standing alone, Julian having been pulled aside by a major donor, when Vanessa Montgomery appeared beside her. Surviving? Vanessa asked with a knowing smile. Barely. I keep waiting for someone to realize I don't belong here. None of us belong here. We just pretend better. Vanessa took 2 champagne flutes from a passing waiter, handing one to Tamara. I wanted to tell you something. I'm moving to Paris. Taking that year off I talked about. Going to study art history, maybe find out who I am without family expectations. That's wonderful. Really wonderful. It's terrifying. But necessary. Vanessa clinked her glass against Tamara's. Thank you. For helping Julian find his courage, which helped me find mine. The ripple effects of kindness, right? After Vanessa walked away, Tamara found herself approached by Catherine. Having a terrible time? Catherine asked. Not terrible. Just out of my element. Good. That means you're real. Everyone else here is performing. Catherine gestured at the crowd. Half these people don't care about community development. They're here because it's fashionable to support Julian's foundation. But you're here because you care about him. That matters more. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. I haven't always been welcoming. I'm working on that. Catherine paused. My son is happier than I've ever seen him. You did that. I may not have chosen you for him, but he chose you. And he chose well. Before Tamara could respond, Catherine moved away back to her hostess duties. But something had shifted. Not just acceptance, but genuine approval. Halfway through the gala, Julian found Tamara on a balcony, taking a break from the crowd. The night air was cool, the city spread out below them. There you are. I've been looking everywhere. Needed air. And a break from making small talk with people who have more money than my entire neighborhood combined. Fair. Want to leave early? We've raised enough money. Nobody would miss us. Actually, I'm okay. I just needed 5 minutes. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching traffic move far below. Inside, the gala continued, music and laughter spilling through the open doors. Tamara, Julian said suddenly. Close your eyes. Why? Just trust me. Close them. She did, feeling Julian move away from her. When he spoke again, his voice came from a different angle. Okay. You can open them. Julian was kneeling. In his hands was a small velvet box. Oh my God, Tamara whispered. I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other 8 months. But I also know I want to spend every day for the rest of my life with you. You've made me braver, better, more authentically myself than I've ever been. You've shown me what real love looks like, what it means to choose someone and keep choosing them every single day. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, not huge and ostentatious, but beautiful and elegant. Tamara Brooks, will you marry me? Tears streamed down Tamara's face. Yes. Absolutely yes. Julian stood, sliding the ring onto her finger, then kissing her deeply. Behind them, Tamara heard a gasp and turned to see Catherine and Harrison standing in the balcony doorway. They'd witnessed the proposal. Congratulations, Catherine said, and this time her smile was genuine. Welcome to the family. Officially. Harrison pulled out his phone. Mom, we need to tell everyone. This is huge. Let them have their moment first, Catherine said, unusually gentle. The announcement can wait 5 minutes. But of course word spread instantly. By the time Julian and Tamara returned to the ballroom, everyone knew. Congratulations came from all directions. Champagne flowed. The string quartet started playing romantic music. Rochelle, who'd been attending as Tamara's guest, pushed through the crowd to hug her sister. You're getting married, she said, crying happy tears. Mom and Dad would be so happy for you. They would, Tamara agreed, her own tears starting fresh. And I get a rich brother-in-law who'll pay for law school. Rochelle? I'm kidding. Mostly. She hugged Tamara again. I'm so happy for you. He's a good man. He'll take care of you. We'll take care of each other. That's what partnerships are. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Dancing, toasts, plans being made. Harrison promised to throw them an engagement party. Catherine offered to help with wedding planning if they wanted. Patricia sent a text. About time. When's the wedding? I'm officiating. At midnight, Julian and Tamara escaped to his car, exhausted but ecstatic. That went well, Julian said as he drove toward Tamara's apartment. You proposed in front of your entire donor base. I proposed in front of people who care about us. There's a difference. At her apartment building, Julian walked her to the door, the same ritual they'd done for months. But tonight felt different. This wasn't just a boyfriend dropping off his girlfriend. This was a fiancé saying goodnight to his future wife. I can't believe you're going to marry me, Julian said. I can't believe you asked. Actually, I can. You're nothing if not bold when you believe in something. I believe in us. More than anything. They kissed goodnight, Tamara's ring catching the streetlight and sparkling. Inside the apartment, Rochelle was waiting up. Show me the ring properly, she demanded. Tamara held out her hand and they both stared at it. The ring was beautiful, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. He picked well, Rochelle observed. He did. He really did. So when's the wedding? Can I be maid of honor? Are we going to have to move to the right mansion? Is my college debt completely covered now? Slow down. We just got engaged. We haven't planned anything yet. But we're going to be okay, right? You getting married doesn't mean you'll forget about me? Tamara pulled her sister into a tight hug. Never. You're my family. Julian marrying me means he's marrying into our family. Nothing changes that. That night, Tamara lay in bed, unable to sleep despite exhaustion. She kept looking at her ring, at this physical symbol of promises made. 8 months ago, she'd helped a desperate stranger in the rain. Now she was engaged to that stranger, planning a future she'd never imagined. Her phone buzzed. I know you're not asleep. Neither am I. Too excited. She replied, what have we done? Started the rest of our lives. Scared. Terrified. And happy. Both at once. That's how you know it's real. The best things in life are terrifying and beautiful together. When did you get so wise? When I met you. You taught me to be brave. Pretty sure you taught me that. Then we taught each other. Even better. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Engagement announcements in society pages, much to Tamara's discomfort. Congratulations from everyone who'd followed their story. Offers to host the wedding from venues that wanted the publicity. We should do it at the lake house, Julian suggested one evening. They were having dinner with Harrison and Olivia, discussing wedding plans. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Somewhere that actually means something to us. Mom will want something bigger, Harrison warned. More formal. Rites always have big weddings. This rite is doing it differently. If people want to celebrate with us, they can come to the reception in the city afterward. But the actual wedding should be intimate. Catherine pushed back as expected, but Julian stood firm. The wedding would be at the lake house in June, small and meaningful. The reception would be large and formal, satisfying society expectations. Compromise. Tamara spent her days working at the hospital, her evenings planning a wedding and helping run the foundation. It should have felt overwhelming, but instead it felt right. Busy but purposeful. Challenging but meaningful. One evening, she and Julian visited the lake house to scout locations for the ceremony. Standing on the dock where they'd kissed months before, watching the sunset paint the water gold, everything felt perfect. Right here, Tamara said. This is where we should get married. On the dock. By the dock. Overlooking the water. Where everything feels peaceful and real. I love it. Simple and honest. Very us. They sat on the dock's edge, feet dangling above the water, watching the sun disappear behind trees. Julian? Yeah. Thank you. For finding me that rainy night. For letting me help you. For being brave enough to choose your own path. Thank you for helping me. For not walking past a desperate stranger. For taking a risk on someone you had every reason to avoid. Best risk I ever took. Best rainy night of my life. They laughed at that, at the absurdity of how they'd met, at how a moment of crisis had turned into love. 3 months later, on a perfect June afternoon, they stood on that same dock surrounded by the people who mattered most. Rochelle as maid of honor, Harrison as best man, Catherine watching with genuine happiness, Patricia officiating with words about courage and authenticity and choosing love over fear. The ceremony was simple. No elaborate decorations, no expensive flowers, no performance. Just two people promising to build a life together, to stay honest and brave and committed through whatever came next. I promise to see you clearly, Julian said when it was time for vows. Not as a symbol of something I'm trying to achieve, but as the remarkable person you are. I promise to support your dreams, protect your autonomy, and love you with the same authentic kindness you've always shown me. I promise to believe in you, Tamara responded. Even when you doubt yourself. I promise to challenge you when you need challenging and support you when you need support. I promise to build a life with you that's honest, purposeful, and full of love. Patricia pronounced them married, and they kissed while their small crowd cheered. No media, no society pressure, no performance. Just pure celebration. The reception that evening in the city was everything Catherine had wanted. Elegant, formal, perfectly executed. But Julian and Tamara danced like they were still on the dock in their own world, building something beautiful together. We did it, Tamara whispered during their first dance. We're just getting started. And they were. The foundation kept growing, making real differences in communities. Julian found his purpose. Tamara continued nursing while also teaching and consulting. Rochelle excelled at law school. Catherine gradually warmed into a real relationship with Tamara. It wasn't perfect. There were challenges, conflicts, moments when their different worlds clashed. But they faced everything together with honesty and courage and love. Years later, when people asked Tamara how she and Julian had made their unlikely relationship work, she always said the same thing. We chose each other. Every single day we kept choosing each other. That's what love is. Not just a feeling but a choice. And we chose well. Julian would add, and it all started with kindness. Tamara saw someone in need and helped, expecting nothing in return. That simple act of compassion changed both our lives. Never underestimate the power of helping people. Their story became something of a legend in both their worlds. The nurse and the billionaire, the rainy night that started everything, the choice to build something real instead of something easy. And whenever Julian told the story, he'd always end the same way. She helped a wayfarer in the rain. Then learned he was a millionaire groom fleeing his own wedding. But none of that mattered as much as what came after. Two people choosing honesty, building trust, and finding love in the most unexpected place. Sometimes the best things in life start with saying yes to helping someone, even when you have every reason to say no. Tamara would smile and squeeze his hand, and they'd look at each other the way they had that first night, with recognition, gratitude, and hope for everything still to come. Because their story wasn't really about wealth or weddings or dramatic escapes. It was about two people finding authenticity in a world that often felt fake. About choosing courage over comfort. About believing that genuine connection was possible across any divide. And most of all, it was about kindness. The simple, powerful choice to help someone in need, expecting nothing in return, and discovering that sometimes, those moments of compassion change everything. The end was really just the beginning. And they lived it fully, honestly, bravely, together.